tech clinical support framework, and the agreement has been given by NHS London Procurement Partnership. The company will aid the NHS and public healthcare bodies. Now, taking this deal into consideration, what does it mean for a Mastek from a size perspective?
Thank you. First of all, thanks a lot for having me on the call. It's a pleasure talking to you too. See, healthcare and NHS, specifically the healthcare in UK, is a key part of our growth that has been there for the last few quarters and will continue to be an important part of our growth going forward. This is a framework which is the NHS, digital and clinical, services framework. It's not an order. It's a framework that gives you the right to hunt within that framework. It's a £800 billion framework, which allows not just the NHS, but its affiliated bodies and even the trusts, which are the hospitals in UK, to procure from using this framework. And this framework will have a variety of different IT services that will get procured across various lots. And Mastek now has been onboarded in this framework. It's step one to being a part of the NHS procurement. So we're looking forward to a lot of new things happening on this framework. NHS is the key for really reviving the government's image. A lot of active spend and focus is on reviving NHS. And a lot of that revival is through digital ways and means. For example, creating a single unified digital ID or patient ID that could be across all NHS trusts, and digital health or telehealth, data-driven healthcare, preventions program, which is preventing patients from getting into the hospitals, and so on and so forth. So a lot of spend is due on NHS. A lot of investment is going to happen, and these are procurement vehicles that allow the NHS to buy from. And Mastek continues to be a key partner, and now we also are on the framework that will allow us to be a part of these investments that the government will make.
Point taken, Mr. Nahata. This is Harsh joining in. Give us a perspective on the size of the deal, because you're currently at 3,500 crore. In that context, in terms of top line, what's the impact going to be like?
See, the framework overall is £800 billion framework over the next 4 years. Most of the contracts that the government signs within this framework is a 3+ 1 year kind of contract. Healthcare continues to be a key part of our growth engine. We've doubled the healthcare portfolio, especially our healthcare portfolio in UK. Last year, we continue to look at a very high growth in that segment in this year and in the following years to come. I don't have a specific number for you, but it's an area which is going to be the highest growth area for us, amongst all the sectors that we operate in.
Hi, Mahima also joining in. Just want to understand, because this is my understanding as to how NHS London works, because some part of it will be spent by the government as well, and some part will be spent by you. What is that ratio, and what is the approximate amount of investment that you're looking at?
So a lot of the spend is with the government. Of course, the government works with partners like ourselves, especially in the new AI and digital wave. It looks forward for partners like us to come out and deliver new concepts, new ideas, new POCs. So, for example, a lot of work that we're doing today is around data-driven, using data breaks and using AI as a technology to deliver some proof of concepts. But a big block of the investment is going to come from the government. The investments that partners like Mastek will make are more around demonstrating how these technologies could be applied in the government's context.
Umang, another question I have, which is overall from a business perspective, right? Because currently we're talking about issues in hiring trends that have continued for IT as a sector. There is no clarity in terms of the client budget spends. No major positive trigger that is coming in for IT as a sector in the month of September, because AI investments are still at an infancy stage. And there's a possibility that the FI churn may be seen in the counters from here on, because the FI position, stakes in IT as a sector is at the lowest right now. If you have to take all of these aspects into consideration, where do you see the sector currently, and in turn Mastek, and are you seeing a revival?
So it's a great question, and a lot piled into the same question. But See, what is happening is our industry is an industry of waves. A lot of technology revolutions really drive the changes and disruption that the industry goes through. AI clearly is a significant disruption in the way we used to do business earlier, especially the IT services side of it. A lot of productivity gain on the technology side, on all the engineering work that we do, from software development to testing to maintenance to everything else that was being done. A lot of AI is being introduced in that kind of work. And hence there is, efficiency gains anywhere from a 10, 20% to 50, 60%, depending upon the kind of programs we're executing. And therefore, it is right for the customers to ask for those kinds of efficiency gains out of their partners who are operating. What it also allows for is there were various areas of their business that were not digitized, where we were not monetizing the data, and newer revenues. So I see this wave in two parts. The part one is where we will have to demonstrate efficiency in the piece of work that has already been assigned to us, demonstrate that those efficiencies, and that will give us the right to ask for more and bigger pieces of work with our clients. And step two is when newer pieces of work, when everything else that the client uses, all of their applications, all of their softwares will also have to be automated for AI in it, is where the real big hype and growth for the services will come in. So in the short term, it is going to be demonstrating efficiency gains in our estate and therefore creating advantages and asking for more. Step two is when the larger changes will come up.
Got it. Mr. Natha, really short on time. So give us a perspective, because you have such a large footprint in Europe in terms of your overall revenue, that you have a very good pulse also of how Europe is behaving at this point. There's obviously a larger focus with regard to spending, government spending that's happening in Europe. Are you seeing that translating to more business interest, better quality of business?
So, our business is largely UK. A large portion of the Europe is UK right now. And UK government is one of our biggest customers. So currently the trend is the UK government is also looking at, while they are spending a lot more on NHS and healthcare and defense and a few other critical sectors, there is a lot of efficiency asked in most of the other sectors. A lot of that is driven by AI. From the sizing and position where we are, we believe that the government's focus on AI and adoption will increase very rapidly in the short term, which might lead to, like I said, demonstrating some of those efficiencies in the piece of work that we have. But that and the strength and the trust that we have created with the government will really allow us to take a much bigger piece of pie, based on the efficiency that we're able to demonstrate in the small estate that we have with them today. So government will look at efficiency asks. A lot of spend will happen on digitization, but it will be also based on a lot of efficiency, both in terms of government processes, also in terms of their engineering spend.
Good opportunity to look at as well. But thank you, Umang, so much for joining us on the show and sharing the perspective with regards to the deal and how big this space could be for you. But staying with the IT space, Infosys is mulling a buyback, and this is on the 11th of September. That's the date that they have discussed so far. Let's quickly look at the details. A proposal that will be considered for equity share buyback on the 11th of September. This is actually the first buyback that Infosys is looking at in 3 years, and October 2023 was the last buyback. If you see in terms of the buyback trend as well, what is interesting over here is the average premium is around 25%. So that is what you can take into consideration currently. And apart from that, if you have to look at the cash and cash reserves, that's the next one, that is standing at 45,200 odd crores. Now in 2017, as a percentage of cash, the buyback was approximately 31%. So you could look at that number, taking into consideration the cash levels are the same this time around. On an average also, Infosys spends around 30% of the cash on buybacks, which is almost coming up to around 13,560 odd crores. And to be noted, on the back of this news, the stock has seen an uptake of almost 25,000 odd crores, if I'm not mistaken, and I remember the number correctly, what Harsh gave us. Let's quickly look at the net worth. 95,350 odd crores is what Infosys is sitting on, and this is the current one as per the first quarter. And this is the highest highest that we've seen also since 2017. On an average, if you talk about the maximum limit, Infosys buyback is 14 to 15% of the net worth. Again, that number is coming to around 13,800 odd crores. If you talk about the maximum limits as per the SEBI rule, 25% of your net worth at around 23,840 crores is what Infosys can do as per the SEBI norms. And 10% of the net worth is at around 9,500 crores. And if it's less than 10%, more than 10%, special resolution is also required. What it could mean, this will actually provide some support as well in the environment that we are seeing right now. And that is clearly visible with the kind of uptick that we've seen in the stock price. Now, will buybacks in IT come back is the story from here on. If you talk about analyst views as well, consensus target, the highest is a 45% upside. Consensus is at 21 to 21% upside from the current market price. Very lastly, if you have to look at valuations, 12-month forward is 20 times, 5-year average is 25 times. That is clearly telling you the stock is also reasonable. So that's the story in and around Infosys buyback. But with the kind of upside that we've seen today, let me take the question with Kush. Kush, let me come to you. The 4.5% upside on the buyback, would you still say it's a buy at current levels?
So Hiral, that depends on the horizon. If it's a pure momentum play, I would say not, because despite the stock actually holding onto the ground, that it's gained and also inching closer to the high point of the day towards close, which is actually a very healthy sign. There are supply pressures, evident at the 1550, 1525 mark, which is not too far from the current level. So risk reward ratio from a very near-term perspective, not favorable. But if you have a 12-month kind of a horizon, maybe a little longer, then I think there's a solid base that the stock is made near the 1425 mark. So with that as your stop loss for higher levels of 1575, 1625, you could still consider. So more of a positional bet, not from a near-term perspective. If you do have a position, no harm in holding up.
All right, so Infosys more of a positional bet is what Kush is saying right now as far as the charts are concerned for the counter. But the other counter that's been in focus since the past 3 days is Prime Focus, continuously hitting that upper circuit of 10% mark. And this is because marquee investors are making entry into this counter and 3 straight days of large deals as well where Prime Focus is concerned. Now, just a brief about the company. It's an integrated media entertainment services provider. Basically gives you services ranging from post-production, digital intermediate, visual effects, 2D, 3D, etc. And also is present in 18 odd cities. Now, the large deal that has been in focus today, around 20 lakh shares exchange hand at the price of 187.61. Yesterday's block deal also, investors like Marina Horizon and Marina Ivy sold around 1.8% in the company, and Augusta Investments owned another 2% in the company, and the entire stake of 3.87% was bought in by Kraft Emerging Market Fund. Day before yesterday, we had seen marquee investors entering the counter. Names like Madhusudan Kela bought in around 2% stake in the company. Utpal Seth bought in around 0.6%, and lastly, Ramesh Damani also bought in around 0.3% in this company as well. In terms of the recent updates as well, the company has recently raised funds via preferential allotment by way of private placement. The company approved around 46.27 crore of equity shares at 120 per share, and the total consideration was around 5,500 odd crores, and this was funded by cash consideration by way of a swap. And the deal entirely here is that this is made for investing in their arm, which is DNEG, and the overall acquiring value was around 43 crores in terms of shares swap, and the remaining 3.25 crore shares was for 390 crores in terms of consideration. Now, in terms of the stake in the DNEG arm that I'm talking about, the company is basically a material step-down subsidiary of the company, and post this acquisition, it will hold around 88.28% stake in the company, which overall has a valuation of another 5,000 crores, and that's a big deal for Prime Focus, and that could also be one of the reasons as to why the stock has been buzzing since the past few weeks as well. If you take a look at the stock performance of Prime Focus, 5 days it's up 33%, 1 month it's up 27%, and the past 6 months, it's given around 91% returns to their investors. So this is the overall view of what is happening in the counter and why the stock is buzzing, has been buzzing, in fact, in trade. Kush, I'll come to you on this one. Prime Focus, do you think the momentum is still there with respect to where charts are concerned?
Mahima, irrespective, it's the third day when the stock is locked in an upper circuit. There is no way you would be able to get your hands on it. But no, I think from a near-term perspective, this trade is done. The risk reward is absolutely not favorable. If you have, you should continue to hold because, as I said, 3 days locked in upper circuit, you would have already made crazy returns. But because it's still locked in upper circuit, you might want to continue to hold up to this one. As I said, I mean, even if you want to, you wouldn't be able to get your hands on it, and risk reward ratio not favorable. So don't initiate fresh positions.
Fresh positions right now, absolutely strong volumes. Stay with us, Kush. We'll quickly slip into a short break. Up next, we'll be actually talking about the chatter behind the dealing rooms in our segment Heard on Street with Soumit Sarkar. Please stay tuned to NDTV Profit.
हम नेक्स्ट जनरेशन जीएसटी रिफॉर्म्स लेकर के आ रहे हैं ये दिवाली के अंदर.
I think it will have a very positive impact on the GDP.
A landmark reform, a new economic chapter, a nation rising together. NDTV Profit presents the GST Conclave with Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, policymakers and industry leaders reflecting on GST 2.0 and charting the road ahead. NDTV Profit GST Conclave, reforms for a resurgent India. Only on NDTV Profit.
We see the problems, but you as a social entrepreneur see the solutions. You are not just creating solution, you are creating a future where everyone has a chance to thrive. For the change makers, the innovators, the ones building a better world, one solution at a time. The Adani Green Talk Social Impact Awards are created for you, inviting social entrepreneurs to apply. Green Talk Social Impact Awards 2025, where innovation meets impact.
Presenting the all-knowing, all-powerful Tech Guru.
Whoa. Guru? I'm no guru.
Okay.
I'm just a guy who loves his tech.
A show where the mysteries of megabytes and motherboards shall be unraveled.
Bro, nobody talks like that anymore. This is all about connected ecosystems, EVs and AI that you can use in your daily lives. We aren't talking about time travel yet.
Gadgets tested under extreme conditions.
But why? I review tech for people like you and me. You know what? Let me take it from here.
All right.
Tech isn't that complicated. In fact, it's about making our lives simpler, better, and more fun. That's what we do on Tech 360. Real talk, real reviews, tech that you can actually use.
Tech has changed. So should your tech show.
The markets move fast.
And so should your portfolio. Expert insights, real-time stock picks.
Do I buy Ola?
Should I hold CDSL for the long term?
Buy, sell or hold.
The answers you need, straight from the experts.
Callers from
Thanks for being with us here on NDTV Profit. Slew of stocks buzzing. And of course, we'll have heard on the street very, very soon. But Varsha, to start off with, to join us with that list of stocks that are buzzing in trade. What's on your list, Varsha?
Well, thank you so much for that. Let me start with Glenmark Pharmaceuticals, wherein they've received an upfront payment of $700 million. Now, this is on the back of their licensing agreement or licensing deal for one of their lead asset, that is ISB 2001. Now, the payment is according to the contractual agreement that they did. Company will also receive, or rather is eligible for $1.22 billion payment in development, regulatory and milestone. Next on the list is, Morpen Lab, wherein they've signed JV they've signed a JV agreement with a UAE-based company. Now the JV will actually manufacture and sell the medical devices and related products. Last on the list is Morgan Stanley note on the apparel retailer, wherein they've upgraded overweight from equal weight for AB Fashion, and they've initiated with overweight for AB Lifestyle. They think that these are at the cusp of improvement, rather the fundamentals will improve. This on the back of profitability and also sees opportunity for valuation re-rating. So these are the three stocks, rather four stocks I would say, which are buzzing on the back of news flow.
Thank you so much, Varsha, for those, and absolutely buzzing on the back of news. In fact, let's get in Vinit Bulinjkar, Head Research at Ventura Securities as well. Vinit, good afternoon and welcome to the show. From the four names that Varsha has been talking about, two on the back of a brokerage note, Morpen Laboratories on the back of a JV, and the $700 million that was known that Glenmark has now received from AbbVie as well. Anything that you would recommend investors to look at or buy at current levels?
I think I'll go with Glenmark because the intrinsic valuation and follow-through is going to be very, very strong. I believe that Glenmark is well suited to rally further from here, given the traction that they're getting from the deal.
Okay. Kush, any view with regards to where Aditya Birla Fashion is concerned? I'm not sure if Aditya Birla Lifestyle has enough data on the charts, but ABFRL, what are the charts indicating? Further upside is something that you're seeing?
Sure. Just a quick word on Glenmark. I actually do agree with Vineet. I think there's a good upside which is possible. Plus, if you look at it technically, there was a gap around the 1930 mark that was created, when that good news pop came. Precisely, that's the area where it's failed, taken support, and it's now rebounding. So I think a good, entry point for a positional trade on Glenmark. Now to the question on AB Fashion, very interesting moves on this one as well. For the past 12 odd sessions, if you see, there have been at least 3-4 sessions where you've seen above average volumes, and the price action has actually gone from 77, 78 to up until 90. So the momentum is already underway. If I were to bet on one of the two at least, I would definitely bet on AB Fashion. And you're right, AB Lifestyle doesn't really have too much data, so I'll skip it.
Okay, so those are the picks coming in there. But, because Glenmark is one stock that both the technical and the fundamental analysts that we have are positive on, let's look at another, healthcare company which is listed today on the bourses, Amanta Healthcare. Let's just pull up that stock on the screens and see what the counter is doing in trade. It's debuted today. 12.5% up move is what we are seeing in terms of the stock. In fact, the subscription itself, Harsh, was so strong on this counter, and the up move probably was absolutely warranted as well. I think a quick question with Vineet on this one. Vineet, would you be a buyer with a 12.5% upside on a Amanta?
I don't track it too much, so difficult for me to comment on that, but definitely something in the works for us.
Anything in the healthcare space, Vineet? Anything that you like?
See, there is one small counter called Sakar Healthcare. They're doing some very good development in terms of generic and anti-cancer drugs. I think that company should be looked at. They just did a 25% YOY growth in the last quarter, and we're expecting some very strong numbers coming from there. So it's a very under-owned stock, a value buy, and can surprise on the upside.
Okay, and Vineet, your take with regard to IT, because the move that Infosys has made today, can't help but ask you that question.
Yeah, so when you have very bad negative trends in the stocks, and most of them are at their supports. Any kind of good news that comes, like a buyback, we've seen the stocks move up. But beyond that, I don't think there is much be made out of this. Uh, we need to see how the IT space will move in relation to how the US markets are performing, and expected cataclysm that we expect out there. So just I think it's a flash in the pan.
And IT. But Sona BLW, the saga has now taken a new turn. That is what your flashes are indicating right now. The stock is at the day's lowest levels. You have Karishma Kapoor's kids who have moved the Delhi High Court for a share in Sanjay Kapoor's estate. That's the latest that we're picking up. The children have accused Priya Sachdev of forging the will. So that's a new turn that the Sona BLW saga has taken after the promoter's untimely death. The children have now been accusing Priya Sachdev of forging the will, and now they are actually asking in for their rights. They've moved the Delhi High Court as well in the same for the same. That stock is down 2.5% as we speak. But the bull versus bear segment is another highlight. Ujjivan Small Finance Bank, an interesting stock, at the day's highest levels, gains of nearly more than 7.5% coming in there, and hence that becomes our bull versus bear candidate. Our colleague Vansh is with us to tell us more. Vansh, what are the bull cases? Where are the bear cases as well? And I think then Harsh will be there to weigh in as well.
Well, yes, so let me start off with the bull case scenario first. Now, what we can see is the loan, if I talk about the loan book, now the bank is expecting the loan book, to triple the gross loan book portfolio in the next 5 years. So this is a big positive for the bank. But if I talk about the bear case scenario, now the bank has been able to double their entire loan book from FY21 to FY25. That's a 21% CAGR. But this was on the lower base. So it would be interesting to watch out for, like, if the bank is able to triple its gross loan portfolio with a higher base from here on. Moving on, let's also look at the secured book. Now the secured book is expected to be 65 to 70% of the entire loan book of the bank. But if I talk about the bear case scenario, now the increase in the secured book will obviously drive down the margins, and it is the unsecured part that enables the bank to fetch that higher margin mark. Moving on, let's also look at the ROA of the bank. Now the bank aims to maintain a steady ROA of about 1.8 to 2%. However, the bank is however, the ROA of the bank has been inconsistent, and in the last 5 quarters, in fact, the ROAs have been declined, and they are trading below 1% as well. Lastly, next what we have is the credit cycle. Now the credit cycle is expected to turn positive in its second half of FY26, followed by the boost in consumption. However, the credit cost of the bank has already gone up by 2.5% since the last 3 quarters. That is again a negative to watch out for this particular stock. Lastly, what we have the valuations. Now the bank is trading at a valuation price to book of 1.5. Now this looks reasonable given the strong growth guidance from the bank. However, if we look at the 5-year average of the price to book, it stands at 1.3. So what we can clearly look is that we are trading at the above mark in above end in terms of the price to book for this bank as well. Lastly, if we look at the analyst recommendations, we can see 14 buy calls, 1 hold call and 1 sell call with expected return potential of about 18%. So this is what the overall picture is looking like for a Ujjivan Small Finance Bank.
Well, thank you so much for that, Vansh. Very well put. But when you're looking at the way in which the stock has moved, it's 7.5% up in trade as we speak. Vineet Bolinchkar, Ujjivan Small Finance Bank in particular, would this be on your radar? And do you believe that this tripling of loan book by FY30 likely?
It can be possible.
Okay.
It can be done. You just need to get your act together. Execution is a key out here. And they've come back with a reasonable performance. Not extraordinary to think that they will do the tripling of the book. Valuations are factoring in the recent performance. They are reasonably valued. I think a northern arc which is going to grow at about 20-25% over the next few years, and having a very low price to book with very decent de-risked product offers greater value at current levels.
Okay, all right. So that's with regards to where Ujjivan Small Finance Bank is concerned, and of course where charts are concerned. But with regards to this counter precision camshafts, Kush, your view, the stock has gained over 45% in the past 5 days, and the kind of momentum that has picked up in the past 5 days is quite impressive. Do you think the momentum still stays going forward?
So the volume action would suggest, yes, it could, continue from here on as well. So you're right, the stocks actually had a phenomenal run. Today, the volumes are multifold of the past 20-day average. So I think there is definitely, accumulation happening. And yes, while the momentum can take the stock northwards of, 270, 280 as well. From a near-term perspective, that trade is done. It's already hit overheated territories. So no point buying now. The best strategy on this one would be to hold, or perhaps buy on declines closer to 240 levels.
Right. In fact, coming to the small finance bank, we've taken a fundamental view from Vineet. Kush, what would you have to say? Because all your small finance banks, from Utkarsh Small Finance Bank, Suryodaya, ESAF, Equitas, Jana, Capital, all of them have underperformed. You've seen cuts to the tune of almost around 16 to 55% at various stages, all of them. Taking the commentary from Ujjivan into consideration, and if you have to apply a similar technique that fundamentals will turn around for the other names as well, would you be a buyer at current levels of any of them?
Not really, Hiral. I wouldn't paint the entire sector with the same brush. A lot of names aren't showing that kind of exuberance or enthusiasm that Ujjivan is. But if I talk specifically about Ujjivan, definitely an interesting move. And I'm not just saying because of the move that it's making today. It's had 28 sessions of consolidation where 42 to about 44, 44.5 if I'm pushing the range. That's where it's consolidated. It's had its spurts and spurts and volumes as well. Today it's finally broken out of that range. The 50-day moving average also taken out. So I think it's got a few factors going for it. From a technical standpoint, I won't be surprised to see the stock actually hit 48.5, 50 and maybe even higher levels in the current rally itself. So amongst the entire pack, Ujjivan stands out. So if you do want to trade in this particular space, you should consider Ujjivan. Now the resistance level of 44.5, that will act as a support, and that should be your stop loss.
Okay, so that's the take with regard to all small finance banks. But, a little bit more on that. And really the argument is that they've underperformed. And can there be a change in terms of the next 12 months in terms of performance? And we've tried to break down the data and try to kind of say as to why that has been the case. You look at the sharp underperformance that we've seen from some of these counters. It's been very, very painful. And there are reasons for that. Let's pull out the reasons. One, you have a poor asset quality cycle primarily. The margins are shrinking because of shrinking loan yields. There's been a shift from higher yielding to more secure products as the cycle has gotten difficult. There's been a rise in credit costs. There's been asset quality pressure, obviously, as a result of that. And all of this is pressuring the ROA. Both the margins and the credit costs are what's pressuring the ROA. And you'll see what has played out in terms of margins. There's been a sharp shrink across the board. Let's roll the slide forward, get the balance banks as well. And that is the sense you'll get on the way in which the margin shrink has been. Let's talk about credit cost, and that one has gone up. You look at the band in which they've traded, all of these are now at a point where they are playing with the highest end of the band where credit cost is concerned. This is, of course, the last 3 years data where you're looking at the credit cost over the last 5 quarters, how they've inched higher from 2.7% 5 quarters ago. Credit cost currently sits at 8.8% for something like an Utkarsh, a higher end of the band even for some of the others. When you're looking at growth, and yes, you will see certain pockets where growth has been there, but you look at some of the very, very fast-growing banks over the last 4 years, the growth has all been back-ended. The last year or so, growth has been sluggish and tough to see for most of them. On a small base as well, you're seeing just an 11% growth that Ujjivan has clocked in this year over the last 12 months. So even growth has been subdued. Now, what to look forward to? Banks having the ability to bounce back quickly will likely do better, of course. The pain in the microfinance and unsecured segment is likely to taper starting Q3. Growth may return in favor of certain banks. Certain banks will be able to bounce back faster, and margins may remain depressed. You want to look out for commentary where all some of these guidances have been made better, because that could well be the opportunity. Credit costs may reverse with likelihood of recoveries also coming through. A lot of this is not being priced in. And that is suggestive of the way in which the analysts are viewing the sector or the segment of lenders. And you'll see very, very strong returns is what they're penciling in. Vineet, you spoke about Ujjivan in particular. Are there any other banks within the small finance bank space that you seem to like, especially from a fundamental perspective? Because there's just so much bullishness that analysts have in terms of upside, but that's not translating at this point.
I think Suryodaya is better positioned. Here you need to take a risk to reward ratio. You need to see the valuations. I think the valuations of Ujjivan Bank are quite reasonable. Suryodaya is quite cheap. I also spoke to you about Northern Arc Limited. I think Northern Arc is got a very well diversified portfolio. Fees coming, not only are they throwing their balance sheet at work, but they're also having a lot of cash flows coming from fee-based income, which are very, very strong. So I believe that, Northern Arc is very well placed to grow from here.
Okay, so that's with regards to where, small finance banks go. Northern Arc Capital, an interesting 1.5% up move coming in on that stock. But now we've actually gone past that 245 window for Herd on Street. My colleague Somit Sarkar joins in with all the chatter from the dealing room. Somit, what are you picking up? And one more, I have a follow-up in the morning that we spoke about Voltamp as well. Any indication of what the, taking the deal size of 7% into consideration, I think it exceeded, and I think it was 8% if I'm not mistaken. Anything that you've picked up?
Well, not much of a detail that has come in on the subscription numbers or who have been the major subscribers for Voltamp Transformers so far. But other stocks that remain in focus, firstly Taj GVK and Nykaa. There's a buzz of a potential block deal in both these counters very soon. In Taj GVK, the seller could be Indian Hoteliers, is what dealers are indicating. And do remember that Taj GVK board meet is today to consider some urgent business matters. So keep that counter in focus. HUDCO is another counter that remains in focus. Dealers are indicating that there are buy flows at lower levels on institutional desk. For PTM, the stock has been under pressure of late, but dealers are now indicating that the selling is likely to get over soon for this counter. So keep an eye out for PTM as well. Ramco Industries buy flows on large HNI desks. Positive development is something that dealers are expecting here. For Trent, there are sell flows seen at higher levels. Weak sales growth number is one of the concerns that is emerging up for Trent, and that's the reason we are seeing such kind of a sell flows for Trent currently in trade. And lastly, it's a Cello World and Axicates. Both this counter, dealers are expecting a fundraise via QIP announcement to come in anytime soon. So keep an eye out for both the counters as well.
Right. In fact, another one, a follow-up I have for you is Kotak Mahindra Bank.
Right.
This morning you had that on your radar as well, and I think there is some
yesterday
buying
itself
interest.
we had it.
Yes, there is some buying interest coming in there as well. Any updates that you're picking up?
So most likely the seller is a Japanese investor, that is Sumitomo. That is what is pretty much known to the street right now, and what I'm hearing is that the block deal might happen in the block window. So not much of concern of leakage of any shares, and hence the shares are not reacting to that block deal.
Okay, so Amit, thank you so much for bringing us those details. Vineet, I'll come to you on Trent specifically. What Amit said was that there's anticipation that the numbers could be, the sales number could be weak going forwards, and this is something that he is hearing despite of the GST reform coming in. Trent could be a possible beneficiary because a lot of items that Trent sells is below that 2,500 mark. Your view with regards to where fundamentals are concerned for this counter, because they're also having huge expansion plans for FY26.
Yeah, so, what was very noticeable is in Q1, their deceleration was there in growth, okay, because of which we've seen the counter tank. And, if you pencil in all the growth that they're talking about, we're getting a fair value in our view at about 4,800. So, there could still be more selling pressure and the stock could underperform over the next couple of quarters, given that the valuation already factors in this entire just of the extreme strong growth prospects.
Okay, so that's with regards to trend. The stock is at the day's lowest levels. So let's quickly pull up a Metro as well. That we're talking about the consumption pack right now. We did speak to the management, and the commentary that we heard, that's actually taken the stock to the day's highest levels with gains of around 4% coming in there. In fact, we spoke to Nissan Joseph, the CEO of Metro. Let's quickly listen into what he had to say.
I think it's the positive revenue is really the increase of demand that comes when you lower price points. So that's where the positivity comes from. As far as clearing out the old inventory, it's not a question of old versus new, right? It's a question of what is tagged. So we can instantly start giving them the benefit of the GST discount right away. And then the new products would have that rolled into the price. So it's not new versus old. It's really a new price point that we're trying to get, but we can reach it a couple of ways. But the bottom line is we plan on turning all those GST savings back to the consumer in all of our banners. No, we don't see a distinct difference between, a product that might be at 5,000 rupees versus a product that's at 2,000 rupees. Our sourcing structure, our margin structure remains pretty constant. So we don't see that, and I think you mentioned inflation. Inflation is always going to play a part of it. And as inflation comes up, you try to reduce some other costs, so you try to get operating leverage to try and maintain that trajectory of that 15% or the mid-teen PAT numbers that we guide to.
All right, so that was the management of Metro Brands and one of the counters that is set to benefit from GST 2.0. Kush, I'll come to you on the charts for Metro Brands. Attractive enough to make an entry?
Afraid not. I mean, this is the fourth time that the stock is attempting the 1240, 1260 zone resistance. And, we've seen rejection from those levels a couple of times in the past. So once that level is taken out, do you consider an uptrade? If not, you might want to just hold on to your position. So 1260, perhaps even 1265, that's the range that you want to watch for. Above that, it could start a new trend.
Okay, Vineet, how would you play consumption at this point? You've already seen a very strong rally in auto, and on the core consumption side, would it all something like a Metro Brands feature?
Metro Brands is very well valued. And it has always commanded premium valuations because they've got a very strong business model. I think that there is room for growth, and we could see new highs coming in the in the recent days. It could be one of the biggest beneficiaries of the consumption theme.
That's with regards to where Metro Brands stands. In fact, the footwear space that has been in focus since the GST 2.0. But let's shift focus to the significant order wins for counters like Vari Renewable, Railtel, as well as John Cockerell and Quality Power Electrical. Anushi joins us with more details. Anushi, lots of orders coming in for Railtel in specific.
Well, yeah, absolutely, Mahima. We've seen about 5 order wins just coming yesterday for Railtel Corp, and today also we saw about a 15 crore of an order again. So now just talking about the order wins that we've seen so far, now this totally amounted to about 713 crore, and if we take the 15 crore in consideration, it roughly adds up to around 728 crore or so that we are looking at. So significant orders that we are looking at, and this orders, multiple of these LOAs that have been signed are from Bihar Education Project Council that we are looking at, and this pertains to procurement and installation of smart classrooms at government middle school, along with supplying other facilities like ICT labs as well. If you take the order execution in consideration, that is to be executed by March 26, like majority of these at least, and order book positioning, if we see, that stood at around 7,197 crore as of the first quarter end. Now talking about Vari Renewable, now this is the recent one which came today. They have signed a LOA worth about 1,250 crore for a solar power project, and this is an EPC contract that we are looking at for connected ground mount solar power project to be executed by FY27. And what is interesting is the company's order book as well. Now currently, if you look at their unexecuted order book, that stands at 3.15 gigawatt peak. This is to be executed between 12 to 15 months period that we are looking at, and they have a bidding pipeline of around 25 gigawatt of peak as well. So Vare Renewables, another stock in focus. But coming to some of these smaller counters as well, focus, let's shift our focus there as well. We have John Cockrell in focus. Multiple orders that we are looking from here. They've signed a prestigious award in terms of their JFE Electrical Steel Nasik Private Limited, awarding them a major contract. This is for high temperature tunnels furnaces that we are looking at. The order effect playing out in FY27 as well. Along with that, they've also received a 50 crore of an order from Godavari Power. The last one in focus is something like a Quality Power electrical equipment, and this in this the step down subsidiary has received 2 international orders which amount roughly up to 75 crore, and this is to be delivered over the next 1 year period itself. So these are the handful of stocks that are in focus on the back of order wins.
Okay, so on the back of order wins, quick names that are in focus. But, one question I want to take with Kush is on his topic between ITDC, which is seeing strong moves. Precision, we've already spoken about, so I'll skip that one. Sula Vineyards is seeing a good day of trade. IOL Chemicals, last 2 to 3 sessions have been pretty strong. And a GSFC. If you have to look at these 4 counters in trade today, Kush, anything that you would advise for a more momentum pick perspective?
So I think from a pure momentum trade perspective, IOL Chemicals actually is doing rather well. It's had a good session yesterday as well. Today you're seeing some follow through. While there is some profit booking from the higher levels of 120, 20.5, I think the momentum could take it higher to about 125 watt levels. Keep a strict stop loss near the 114 mark. So good momentum, good traction, and the follow through of yesterday's moves, puts it in a good state.
Okay, so that's with regards to IOL Chemicals, but we'll quickly slip into a short break. We have lots more lined up on the other side, where GST 2.0 is going to be called a landmark reform, one that redefines the way India does business. But what does this mean for industry, for markets, and for you? How will this actually shape the growth story for a Viksit Bharat? From reforms to real impact, from policy to people. Every question that matters will be answered today at the NDTV Profit GST Conclave with Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, who will lead the crucial conversation. But first up, let's get in Tamanna and Neeraj, who is at the conclave, to get us a wipe check. Who are you also joined by? We have NDTV's Vishnu Som, Gauri Dwivedi and Vedika Sood. Tamanna, what's the mood check looking like?
All right, hi guys, we're all set for the GST event this season. Yes, we're all counting our pockets on how much we're saving after the GST cut, but the GST Conclave is where it's all at, and we have the star cast across the NDTV network and on NDTV Profit. Vishnu, what is the one thing that you're hoping to hear from Finance Minister, the one question in mind?
I want to know how much the common person is going to actually save, and if this is going to spur consumption.
I think people are going to spend more than save now that they think they have extra pennies. What is the one thing that you are going out to buy? Have you looked at car models yet, Vedika?
I need a fridge. It's been a while, though there's no real discount on fridges. I've realized I just have to go get it. But there's a lot of excitement because there are a lot of family members who've been waiting for GST 2.0, and I think they were just waiting and waiting to get to this point, 22nd September, to go out there and get their stuff. So friends and family, very excited.
I wonder if people will upgrade to more expensive stuff. Gauri, what's going to be the highlight for you?
I think I wish I had the same kind of bucket list that all of you do in terms of purchases.
40%, 40%.
I am in the bracket.
So look at the higher end cars where the GST has come down. Yeah.
I think it's more like I want to save the extra money that I'm getting.
So
how much I'm going to save?
Savings.
How much am I going to save is the key question, and I think that's going to be equally important.
I think Tamanna, that happened with the income tax cuts, right? The savings happen. Now is the time to spend. So the economy needs it. Go out and splurge. But I think one thing that I'll look forward to is hearing what's next after this first set of GST reforms have happened, because everybody's talking about whether this is setting the stage for further reforms in India. Is this the first big one, and then do the others happen? Any thoughts, anybody on that?
I think that one nation, one tax that everybody's been talking about.
Light years away?
Is there? Yes. But probably this is the best time to talk about it. I mean, if at all we're going to get anywhere close to it, I think this is the time to speak about it.
Any thoughts, anybody else?
So I just want to say that all of this is great as long as people end up spending less for what they wanted to actually buy. In other words, all of this needs to translate onto the common consumer.
I think it needs to be the reverse. People need to spend more, and then people need to also save more in terms of mutual fund inflows, if at all. If you're not spending, then at least put it in the right way to save. But I think people are going to upgrade. If you're going to buy a small car, maybe you look at a sedan. If you're looking at a sedan, maybe you look at an SUV. That's what the hope is.
Now we know what Tamanna is going to do.
Profiteering. No secret profiteering is my point. I know they've spoken
This is
against
why
it.
the markets are down, because none of this is going to be margin accretive.
Yeah. So
People are worried that in the long run, all manufacturers are somehow or the other going to find a way to pocket the profits, which is their birthright.
Exactly.
But there is an anti-profiteering intention over here. How much will that work?
And that's a
But
question
can we-
we should
that's my
ask the
question.
stakeholders today.
Can we
is it
actually
going to pass on
implement
to the
it?
consumers or not? Are you going to, like he said, pocket it, or is it going to pass on to the Aam Aadmi?
Okay, look at the glass half full as we wrap this. It's a major reform undertaken. Let's just see what's next in store. But for today, let's just get the nuts and bolts of this one being done. So tune in 3 p.m. onwards on the NDTV network, across the NDTV network, for the GST Conclave.
हम नेक्स्ट जनरेशन जीएसटी रिफॉर्म्स लेकर के आ रहे हैं ये दिवाली के अंदर.
I think it will have a very positive impact on the GDP.
A landmark reform, a new economic chapter, a nation rising together. NDTV Profit presents the GST Conclave with Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, policymakers and industry leaders reflecting on GST 2.0 and charting the road ahead. NDTV Profit GST Conclave, reforms for a resurgent India. Only on NDTV Profit.
We see the problems, but you as a social entrepreneur see the solutions. You are not just creating solution, you are creating a future where everyone has a chance to thrive. For the change makers, the innovators, the ones building a better world, one solution at a time. The Adani Green Talk Social Impact Awards are created for you, inviting social entrepreneurs to apply. Green Talk Social Impact Awards 2025, where innovation meets impact.
Presenting the all-knowing, all-powerful Tech Guru.
Whoa. Guru? I'm no guru.
Okay.
I'm just a guy who loves his tech.
A show where the mysteries of megabytes and motherboards shall be unraveled.
Bro, nobody talks like that anymore. This is all about connected ecosystems, EVs and AI that you can use in your daily lives. We aren't talking about time travel yet.
Gadgets tested under extreme conditions.
But why? I review tech for people like you and me. You know what? Let me take it from here.
All right.
Tech isn't that complicated. In fact, it's about making our lives simpler, better, and more fun. That's what we do on Tech 360. Real talk, real review.
Welcome back. You're watching India Market Close here on NDTV Profit. Let's bring in both our guests, in fact, very quickly before we speak more. I mean, we obviously have a view coming in with regard to an Ambuja on CLSA, but before that, I was just looking at the BSE 500, and one of the big movers in trade is an East India Hotels. 6.5% is what it's fallen from the day's high. So you pull up the intraday chart with regard to an East India Hotels, you'll see the kind of fall that we've seen on that stock. So sharp fall that we've seen from the top of the day, of course. Kush, do you have a view with regard to this one?
I think it's a round of profit booking. The stock actually had a bit of a run up from those 390 odd levels all the way up until 434 that it moved today, and this is in a very short span of about 8 odd sessions. So some profit booking. Would I enter now? Not really. Some negative RSI divergences popping up, and the fall is also on the back of fairly decent volumes. So you might want to wait. Once again, around the 395 400 mark, the 20-day moving average support also comes in. So if the stock settles around that level, it might make for an interesting entry. Not yet.
Okay, now the other one really is an Ambuja, and Hiral, we've spoken so much about the fact that cement pricing could improve, and now that we're at the fag end of the rainy season or the monsoons, likely that might spur some amount of demand. In fact, we had CLSA maintaining its outperform, target price 665, so positive with regard to an Ambuja. They believe realizations likely to have a positive impact. Premiumization and reduction in indirect tax likely to have a better impact on demand. Near-term demand impacted by monsoons. They're saying there's already been a deferral of purchases, partly due to monsoons, partly due to GST, and over the medium term, they believe that Ambuja could grow 7 to 8% faster than some of the others.
And in fact, recent also, I think Puneet had only taken us through a dealer check, which was indicating that there was a potential for a price hike that could be taken in the month of October. But on the back of GST cuts, when we spoke to a couple of managements as well, Birla Soft as well as Shree Cement, what they indicated is that they're not negating a complete price hike right now in spite of the GST cuts that have come in. They will look at some portion as well. So this sector is going to be in focus from here on. But if the capex is a downer this time, then that could be a negative.
That, as well as the fact that maybe government spend getting curtailed, either of those, and we spoke about that earlier in the newsroom. But yeah, I mean, likely Ambuja to be that outperformer is what CLSA surely believes. 665 is obviously a decent upside from here. Vineet, do you have a view with regard to cement and Ambuja in particular?
Now Ambuja in the cement pack along with JK Lakshmi Cements. I think Ambuja is doing a lot of rationalization of cost. Acquisitions have been done in reasonable markets where there is growth, and this GST impetus is only going to, make real estate affordable, prolong the life of the real estate cycle, and Ambuja is definitely going to benefit from this.
Okay, do you, Kush, have a view with regard to any of the cement counters?
I think Dalmia Bharat is shaping up very well. It's had a good run. It's holding on to its ground. A lot of the other names starting to see some profit booking, but I think this is just setting up for the next leg of up move. So JK Lakshmi Cement, Ultratech, some of these names could actually well see an up move from here on. But I think a Dalmia Bharat still holding in good state. So if you want if you want a more steady kind of a trade, then Dalmia Bharat is just on.
Okay, now the other piece is with regard to a Swiggy and a Zomato. The Competition Commission has ramped up scrutiny on quick commerce platforms. What has led to this, and what's the impact of this likely to be on both the Zomatos, Swiggies of the world, but also some of the Kirana stores? Agni takes a closer look at this piece. Agni, what are you hearing?
So the Competition Commission of India is looking into alleged anti-competitive practices by quick commerce players. Now this petition has been filed by a distributors body with the competition watchdog, and they are looking into players like Instamart, Blinkit and Zepto to decide what kind of practices are these companies pursuing, which forces Kirana stores to shut shop. Now Kirana stores across Mumbai we talked to have voiced a common idea where they are saying that deep discounting is something that really affects their business, where they can't compete against these giants which are backed by a lot of money and are into a cash burn business. Here's one such Kirana store operator whom we interacted with.
Happens is they have the data with them and they play on it. Also, they are funded companies and their aim is to grow by 10x, 20x over a period of 2-3 years, or every year they have a challenge. They have a target, so they burn a lot of cash. They are not really that's what something that we can do. Yeah, they have a lot of data, they have a bigger team, they can spend so much, and that becomes it's an issue for us. But it's it's a part and parcel of doing business. So what I know for sure, that even they know, the founders know, that what they are doing is not good for this generation. Basically, they are spoiling the habits of the younger generations, the alpha beta gen, which is coming and will be growing with things around like these quick commerce apps. They will never know or how to schedule or plan. It's very random for them. It's very spontaneous for them. कि मन हुआ तो मंगा लिया.
Now, sources tell us that Instamart, Blinkit, and Zepto are in the process of filing their responses to the CCI within the next few weeks, though there has been no official request from the CCI. Now, while we do not know what the contents of these responses will be, we do know that they will be centered around addressing allegations of violation of certain provisions of the Companies Act. Now, while this case draws on, while this probe draws on, and as the companies go to court and decide who's right and who's wrong, ultimately it's the Kirana stores and their owners who end out losing on revenues and a base that took years to build. For NDTV Profit, this is Agnidev Bhattacharya with Prahlad Shinde.
Okay, Agni, thank you so much for bringing us those details. Now, shifting focus to the auto space, Morgan Stanley has come out with a note and hiked prices for a lot of stocks, and Puneet joins us with more details on the rationale and of course what counters are the prices being hiked for.
Well, thank you for that. So 8 counters that they have, either hike prices or actually reduce prices. 7 of them have actually seen an increase in price, with Maruti Suzuki being one of the main focal points in this particular report. Target price now over 18,000 rupees for this one. For a prolonged period, over 6 quarters, Maruti was between 12 to 13,000 in terms of price for its share price essentially, and seen a meaningful upgrade now. Someone like a Hyundai has also seen an overweight rating now. Target price is now 3,066, while something like an Ashok Leyland has also seen meaningful upgrade in its target price. Hero MotoCorp has been upgraded to an equal weight from an underweight earlier, and now target price for this one is 5,900 versus roughly 3,700 earlier, while something like an Eicher Motors is the other one which has seen some form of reduction in target price, while Bajaj Auto has also seen that one as well. Overall, 3 key points they are making in this particular report. Auto upcycle is finally here, is what they say. They've also mentioned that the GST rationalization may drive price cuts of a magnitude that's not been seen ever before previously as well. When you look at the other points they're making, monetary easing as well as the 8th pay commission will also support the demand starting January of 2026 and will be visible in the demand for these prices. And finally, they mentioned that in the past cycles that auto multiples peak largely around when the margins are at its upper end, which isn't the case as of now. So they're mentioning that incremental margins could actually surprise on the upside, and you may see earnings upgrade for a lot of these counters, especially in the OEM space coming in. But we've also seen some stock price increase in a lot and a bunch of auto ancillaries as well. So largely a very, very positive note on autos and increasing the earnings estimates essentially for a bunch of players, with Maruti being the central focal of the report.
Well, it's all about auto. Some prices going up, which is target prices. Some prices coming down, which is the price of the automobile
should you be a buyer
itself.
of the vehicle, or should you be buyer of the stock because of the run-up that you've already seen? And that's the question we should be taking. Thanks, Puneet, for that one. Kush, with the run-up that has already come in, little over 8% is the kind of uptick in the month of September itself for the auto index. Companies have seen a good uptick. Would you still be a buyer at current levels? And if so, which one would it be?
Hiral, assuming one was an investor in some of these stocks or a trader in some of these stocks, I think this is a double bonanza for you, because now you can book profits in those stocks and buy the auto or the vehicle that you want much cheaper. So that's how I would go about it. That's on a lighter note. But on a serious note, all of these stocks have actually had quite a bit of run up. I was suggesting a buy on Mahindra & Mahindra despite the kind of gap up that it had 4 sessions ago, and it still continued to do well from 3450 to about 3700 odd levels. But now even that is starting to see some profit booking. While a lot of these names are doing well and will continue to do well, it will be with some sort of a pullback. The auto index itself has gone into overheated territory, so of course we can assume safely that a lot of components have, and they have. So I will wait for a pullback. The only one that hasn't really moved up quite sharply as the others is Tata Motors, but we know there are a lot of things going for it. So for a positional trade, that still makes sense. But otherwise, be it passenger vehicles or four-wheelers or other two-wheelers, you still want a pullback of anywhere from 5 to 7%, maybe a little more, for these to become an interesting or or a viable trading opportunity.
In fact, we need any one pick, if you had to, from the auto pack, which one would it be?
Go with M&M. I think they've got very, very good product portfolio, good, and it is gaining market share. And I believe that the company's other investments in other subsidiaries also add to these companies. They're all in the capital goods space. So definitely M&M will outperform from here.
Okay, so outperformance with regards to M&M is what we're looking at so far. But apart from this, just a couple of other names right now which actually are looking pretty strong if you have to see from the broader markets. We did speak about RailTel on the back of an order win. Titagar is another one which is seeing a good strength. The question over here is Railway going to make a comeback right now? Because last few months, order wins that have started to come in for railway companies.
Absolutely. Vineet, how would you play this space? You have government spending, whether on infra, whether on railway in particular. Is there any pocket which is looking good to you from that perspective?
I think the railway security platform Kavach looks very good. Here we like HBL Engineering. I think that stock is doing really well. Apart from doing Kavach, they've got very strong order book. Probably good for another 2 years. They've got also other verticals which are really firing. And investors should just take a look at his Q1 numbers, and you will understand why the stock has moved almost 30% since the results were declared.
Okay, some of the other stocks which are really buzzing, and Kush, let me come to you on this one. Lakshmi Organics, from the lows of the day, the stock is up 11%, 9% up, but from the lows, you've really seen this stock make a move. Do you have a view with regard to this one?
So, Harsh, I think this is now very close to a rounding bottom formation breakout, but that comes above the 235 mark. So, if you have a position, continue to hold. For a fresh position, you might want to wait up just one more day, see if there is a follow through for this trade as well, because previously also it's happened that the stocks had a big move on the back of good volumes, but then it's given way and slipped low. So for me, 235 is a key level. If that is crossed tomorrow, then I think this momentum could continue. If not, I think you'll find the stock available at lower levels of 220 to 225. It should be a good entry point.
That's Lakshmi Organics. But as promised, here is the event we have been all waiting for. NDTV Profit GST Conclave, which is live from New Delhi, and those are live visuals that we are picking up with a full audience. I think this is actually telling you the strength and the interest that people have to understand what a GST 2.0 would mean for the economy, what GST 2.0 would mean for the industry, what GST 2.0 would actually mean for all the investors as well. And that's 100% attendance that we're seeing. Let's tell you what the summit is all about. Over to you.
Here at the NDTV Profit GST Conclave. Well, if you want to truly understand the impact of Goods and Services Tax 2.0, there is no better place to be than right here. Today, we bring to you some of the brightest minds, architects of GST 2.0, policymakers, economists, and industry leaders to dive deep into every aspect of this transformative journey and reform. I'm Vedika Sood, and I'll be your MC for the day, guiding you through what promises to be a series of insightful and impactful conversations. To set the stage, it is my pleasure to invite my colleague, NDTV Profit's Managing Editor, Tamanna Inamdar, to deliver the welcome address. Tamanna, over to you.
Thank you, Vedika. Thank you to all of you, and a very warm welcome to each one of you to the NDTV Profit GST Conclave, Reforms for a Resurgent India. Today we gather at a pivotal moment in India's economic journey. The goods and service tax, introduced as a landmark reform, has redefined how India does business. It has unified markets, broadened tax bases, and has brought transparency into the system. But as India aspires to become Viksit by 2047, the conversation does not stop at what has been achieved. It extends to what more can be imagined, innovated, and implemented. This conclave is not just about tax, it's about reform, resilience, and resurgence. It's about creating a business environment that is seamless, efficient, and globally competitive. And above all, it's about how India can continue to power inclusive growth through policy innovation. We're privileged to have with us today some of the most respected voices. Of course, the architects of GS 2.0, industry veterans who are impacted the most and benefit the most, and the economic view from the top. On behalf of the organizers, I extend our deepest gratitude to our partners, speakers, and all of you in the audience, policy thinkers, entrepreneurs, and change makers who make this conversation truly meaningful. It's going to be a packed day of powerful conversations, and of course, we'll have the Honorable Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman joining us soon. We will be speaking and hearing from state finance ministers. We're going to be listening to the Union Commerce Minister, Shri Piyush Goyal, the CBIC chairperson. We have every point of view today through the event. Each session has been designed to not only inform, but to also inspire action. So let's explore how reforms can fuel resurgence and how a resurgent India can set benchmarks for the world.
Thank you, Tamanna. Let's begin with the first session of the day, titled GST 2.0, Matters of States. States, as we know, are the pillars of India's federal structure, and their vision is critical in shaping how GST evolves. This session will dive deep into the challenges, the opportunities, and the reforms needed to strengthen both state revenues and national growth. We are honored to have with us a distinguished panel of leaders representing state perspectives. May I call on stage Shri Harpal Singh Cheema, Honorable Finance Minister, Punjab, Shri Radha Krishna Kishore, Honorable Finance Minister, Jharkhand, and Shri Manjinder Singh Sirsa, Minister for Industries, Food and Supplies, Delhi. Joining them today, my colleague Gauri Dwivedi.
Thank you for that, Vedika. And thank you so much for everybody to be joining in on this GST Council meeting. In fact, this summit that is extremely apt, well-timed, comes as we explore and talk about the reform agenda that lies ahead for India and the resilient India that lies ahead in the wake of these major changes that have taken place. We will be joining with, in fact, Mr. Sirsa will join us very shortly. And as we await him, let's quickly tell our viewers that we will try and cover as much ground here and also talk about the state's perspective. जब हम GST की बात करते हैं, GST की बात तभी पूरी हो सकती है जब हम प्रदेशों की बात करें, क्योंकि ये जर्नी दोनों की साथ की मिलके होगी. और GST एक ऐसा विषय है जो जितना आर्थिक है, उतना ही राजनीतिक भी है. इस विषय के दो पहलू हैं, और इस विषय के और इस ग्रोथ जर्नी के भी दो पहलू हैं, केंद्र सरकार और राज्य सरकार. दो वित्त मंत्री हैं मेरे साथ और सिरसा जी भी हमें जल्दी ज्वाइन करेंगे. पहला सवाल मैं आप लोगों से ये पूछना चाहूँगी, आप सब लोग GST काउंसिल में साथ में थे, वो डिसीजन जो है वो कंसेंसस से हुआ है. कितना बड़ा और कितना इम्पॉर्टेंट रिफॉर्म एजेंडा है जो इस निर्णय से, इस डिसीजन से हुआ है, और आपको क्या लगता है कितना बड़ा रिफॉर्म ये आगे होगा और क्या ग्रोथ ट्रेजेक्ट्री जो है वो देश के लिए इस निर्णय से आगे बढ़ती है?
सबसे पहले मैं NDTV का बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद करता हूं कि आपने ये हमें मंच प्रदान किया. और GST जो अभी रिसेंटली रेट रिडक्शन हुआ है उसका हम सभी लोगों ने, जितने जीएसटी के मेंबर हैं, सभी स्टेटों ने वेलकम किया है, हमने भी वेलकम किया है, क्योंकि हमारी ये डिमांड थी कि रेट जो है वो 4 स्लैब्स में उसमें कम किया जाए और जो इसको थोड़ा सरल किया जाए ताकि आम लोगों को ये समझ आ सके। क्योंकि अभी तक 8 साल की जर्नी में, क्योंकि जीएसटी की 8 साल की जर्नी में बहुत सारी कॉम्प्लिकेशन जो हैं वो स्टेटों को, सेंटर को, सभी राज्यों को झेलनी पड़ी, तो उसको सिंप्लीफाई किया जाए। सो इस स्टेप का हमने वेलकम किया, स्वागत किया। पर लेकिन जो हमें लॉस हो रहा है, जो स्टेटों की इकॉनमी को लॉस हो रहा है, तो उसको कैसे कंपनसेट किया जाए, ये हमारी सबसे बड़ी डिमांड जो है लगभग सभी राज्यों की थी, चाहे वो अपोजिशन स्टेट हो, चाहे वो मैं समझता हूँ बीजेपी के स्टेट हो, क्योंकि लगातार बहुत सारे राज्यों का जो रेवेन्यू लॉस है वो कंटिन्यू अभी तक जारी है। जब 2017 की बात करें, जब से जर्नी स्टार्ट होती है, तो गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया ने ये कमिटमेंट करा था कि हम जीएसटी जिस स्टेट का भी कम होगा तो उसको हम कंपनसेट करेंगे। ये इस थ्योरी के साथ कंपनसेशन सेस जो है वो लगाया गया था इनिशियली 5 ईयर के लिए। अब 5 ईयर खत्म हो गए, 2022 में वो कंपनसेशन सेस जो है वो भी खत्म हो गया, और उसके बाद जो स्टेटों की इकॉनमी का कंटिन्यूसली लॉस हो रहा है, तो उसको कैसे कंपनसेट किया जाए, ये बहुत बड़ा सवाल मैं समझता हूँ देश के लोगों के सामने है।
जी 5 साल का ही टाइम था ना कंपनसेशन का, तो वो 5 साल 2022 में पूरे हुए, तो उसके बाद ठीक है, हम 2025 के इस जीएसटी के जो रेट्स घटे हैं और उससे क्या स्टेट्स को इम्पैक्ट होगा, उस पर 1 सेकंड में आएंगे। और सिरसा जी से भी पूछेंगे कि क्या जो बीजेपी रूल्ड स्टेट्स हैं, क्या उनका क्या व्यू है कॉम्पनसेशन को लेके और स्टेट्स के रेवेन्यू लॉस को लेके। बट एक चीज़ चीमा जी मैं आपसे ये पूछना चाहूँगी कि 2022 से 2025 का ये जो 3 साल का पीरियड है जिसमें आप कह रहे हैं स्टेट्स को, प्रदेशों को लॉस बना हुआ है, तो वो तो 5 साल की विंडो पूरी हो गई जो जीएसटी के लॉ की थी।
देखिए, आपने कंपनसेशन सेक्स जो सेस का एक्ट है उसको पढ़ा होगा, उसमें लिखा जब तक स्टेट स्टेबलाइज नहीं होते, जबकि उनकी जो इकॉनमी है वो स्टेबल नहीं होती स्टेटों की, तब तक ये कंपनसेशन सेस कंटिन्यू रहेगा। इसका मतलब हम डिमांड इसीलिए कर रहे हैं क्योंकि स्टेटों की इकॉनमी स्टेबल नहीं हुई, अभी तक स्टेबल नहीं हुई। 5 साल का जितना कंपनसेशन सेस था वो बिल्कुल, उसमें कोई डाउट नहीं है, वो हमें मिला, हम उसके लिए सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट का धन्यवाद करते हैं। पर लेकिन अब जो उसके बाद लॉस हो रहा है कंटिन्यू, क्योंकि हम प्री जीएसटी की बात करें तो हमारा हमें कलेक्शन कितनी होनी थी, मैं इन टर्म्स ऑफ करोड़ बता दूं आपको। पंजाब की एट द रेट ऑफ CAGR 2000 उस समय हमारी CAGR 13% 11 थी, 13.11 थी, तो उसमें उसके हिसाब से हमारी कलेक्शन 2025 तक होती 2,37 करोड़ 530, यानी 2,37,530 करोड़ रुपए की हमारी कलेक्शन हो जाती इफ हमारा बैट जो है बैट सिस्टम वो कंटिन्यू रहता। तो जीएसटी आने के बाद हमारी कलेक्शन कितनी हुई, 1,26,000 करोड़। तो इसका मतलब लगभग अप्रॉक्सीमेटली 1,11,000 का लॉस जो स्टेट को इन 8 साल में हुआ, पंजाब की मैं बात कर रहा हूं, तो इसमें से लगभग 61,000 CR जो है कंपनसेशन के रूप में हमें मिल गया, इसमें कोई दो राय नहीं है। पर लेकिन जो अभी भी हमारा लगभग 50,000 CR का लॉस है, वो हम कहां से पूरा करेंगे, कहां से उस लॉस को हम बीयर करेंगे, ये बड़ा सवाल है। इसका मतलब स्टेटों की इकॉनमी जो है वो डिस्टेबलाइज हो रही है कंटिन्यूसली, चाहे वो बीजेपी की राज हो, चाहे कोई भी राज हो, क्योंकि हम कोऑपरेटिव फेडरल स्ट्रक्चर की बात करते हैं तो उसको प्रोटेक्ट करने की जिम्मेदारी यूनियन गवर्नमेंट की है, और स्टेटों की इकॉनमी को भी स्टैब्लिश करने की जो जिम्मेदारी है वो सेंट्रल सरकार की है। हम अपनी तरफ से कंप्लायंस की बात है, जीएसटी की कंप्लायंस पंजाब की देश भर में सबसे आगे है। हम पहले 3 राज्यों में रहते हैं जहां जो हमारी कंप्लायंस सबसे ज़्यादा होती है, तो जहां कंप्लायंस भी हमारी पूरी 100% हो रही है, तो फिर भी हमारा कलेक्शन, हमारा नुकसान हो रहा है, हमारा लॉस हो रहा है, तो इसका मतलब अभी भी हमें कहीं ना कहीं सिस्टम में कोई ना कोई खामियां है। अब तक बात करूं 27 टाइम, अब तक जब से जीएसटी आया है जी सिस्टम, 27 टाइम इसमें एग्जम्पशन हो चुका है और 15 टाइम जो है रेट रिडक्शन हो चुका है। जब जीएसटी की जर्नी की बात करते हैं, जीएसटी काउंसिल का आंकड़ा मैं बताता हूं, तो ये भी मेरी डिमांड भी यही थी मैम गौरी जी, काउंसिल भी मेरी डिमांड यही थी कि सभी राज्यों की इकोनॉमी को कहां खड़ी है, जीएसटी से पहले क्या था और जीएसटी के बाद क्या है, ये सामने आंकड़े होने चाहिए। पर लेकिन गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया ने नहीं दिए, क्योंकि उनकी वहां मेजॉरिटी थी, तो उन्होंने वहां, अब आपके पास भी नहीं होंगे। तो वो क्या है, वो डाटा क्या है कि मान लो झारखंड क्या है, कहाँ खड़ा है, दिल्ली कहाँ खड़ा है,
पूछते हैं, झारखंड दिल्ली दोनों का पूछते
वेस्ट
हैं,
बंगाल कहाँ खड़ा है, उत्तर प्रदेश कहाँ खड़ा है, वो देश के सामने होना चाहिए। और उसके बाद रेट रिडक्शन होना चाहिए। हम इसके पक्ष में हैं, हम इसके खिलाफ नहीं है, पर लेकिन स्टेटों की इकोनॉमी को भी ध्यान रखना होगा। स्टेटों की डिफरेंट स्कीम्स हैं, देख अलग अलग स्कीम जो है स्टेटों की चल रही है, उस स्कीमों को भी हमने कंटिन्यू करना है। लोगों की वेलफेयर की स्कीम है।
ऐसा करते हैं, झारखंड और दिल्ली का भी पूछ लेते हैं। और जहां तक हम बात कर रहे हैं आंकड़ों की, आप कह रहे हैं 50,000 करोड़ का नुकसान हुआ पंजाब को। अगर हम ये पुरानी जीएसटी जो अभी तक जो चली उस रिजीम का हम बात करें, और अब की जो रेट रिडक्शन है उसकी हम बाद में बात करते हैं। पर एक चीज मैं ये पूछना चाहूंगी, और ये मैं किशोर जी से पूछना चाहूंगी, वो ये कि जीएसटी काउंसिल में तो निर्णय सारे मिलके हुए, सारे कंसेंसस के साथ। झारखंड का भी एक व्यू ले लेते हैं इसमें। किशोर जी ये बताइए कि सारे निर्णय जो थे वो तो जीएसटी काउंसिल में एक साथ ही बैठ के हुए, कंसेंसस के साथ हुए।
बिल्कुल।
तो उसके बाद अगर ये मतभेद है जो बाद में निकल के आ रहा है, इसको आप कैसे फिर
और देखिए
एक्सप्लेन करेंगे?
ये मतभेद बाद में निकल करके नहीं आ रहा है। जीएसटी काउंसिल की जब बैठक हो रही थी तो भारतीय जनता पार्टी जिन राज्यों में शासन में नहीं है, ऐसे कुल 8 राज्य के लोग हम लोग बैठे थे, और हम लोगों ने ये कभी नहीं कहा कि आपके जो प्रपोज़ल आ रहे हैं हम उसका विरोध कर रहे हैं। हम लोगों ने यही कहा मिल करके, 8 राज्य के फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर और जो भी आए लोग, हम लोगों ने मिलके उनसे यही कहा कि आपके इस जीएसटी रिफॉर्म्स के बाद जो लॉस होगा स्टेट को, उसकी भरपाई आप करिए, वो कर दीजिए। हम कहाँ इसका विरोध कर रहे हैं। एक चीज़, थोड़ा मैं वक्त ज़रूर लूँगा, लेकिन ये कहना चाहता हूँ कि जीएसटी 2 ये तो प्रमाणित हो गया कि 2017 में आदरणीय राहुल जी जो कह रहे थे कि ये बहुत जल्दीबाजी में लाया जा रहा है, और उन्होंने ये कहा भी था कि इतने बड़े देश, इतनी बड़ी जनसंख्या, जब इसको लागू करना है तो सभी राजनीतिक संगठनों से बात कर लीजिए, आम लोगों से बात कर लीजिए, उसके बाद कोई एक फैसला लीजिए। अब इनको 8 वर्ष के बाद ये बात समझ में आ रही है भारत सरकार को कि नहीं, दर घटाना चाहिए। किस पर दर घटाना चाहिए? पिज़्ज़ा पर, पनीर पर, परोठा पर और ड्राई फ्रूट्स पर दर घटना चाहिए। तो ये बात तो है कि 2017 में जो जीएसटी लागू हुआ था वो प्री मैच्योर डिसीजन था गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया का। ये सेकेंड रिफॉर्म्स जो आया है जीएसटी 2 का, तो इससे ये प्रमाणित हो रहा है।
आप ही से मैं ये पूछूंगी, और जैसा मैंने कहा शुरू में कि जीएसटी जो है विषय जितना आर्थिक है उतना ही राजनीतिक है, आपसे मैं ये पूछूंगी कि तब भी तो निर्णय सारे सर्वसहमति से हुए थे, तब भी तो जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अमेंडमेंट पास हुआ था सबकी सहमति के साथ ही तो हुआ था, तब से लेके आज तक।
मैं एक बात आपको बता दूं बहुत स्पष्ट तरीके से। कर्नाटक के फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर कृष्णा देवेगौड़ा जी जब उन्होंने एकदम ठान लिया कि हम किसी कीमत पर सपोर्ट नहीं करेंगे, तो उठ करके मैं उनके पास गया। हमने कहा कि हम लोगों ने अपनी बात रख दी, और ये एक फेडरल सिस्टम है हमारे देश का। हम ये मैसेज नहीं दे सकते हैं कि आप वोट से फैसला करिए। हम लोगों को जो कहना था हम लोगों ने बता दिया। झारखंड के संदर्भ में तो हमने कहा कि ऑटोमोबाइल के क्षेत्र में और सीमेंट के क्षेत्र में इस जीएसटी के निर्धारण से 2000 करोड़ रुपया हमें नुकसान होगा। आप दे दीजिए। अगर आपको लगता हो कि हम राजनीतिक दृष्टिकोण से ये बात कह रहे हैं, तो आप केंद्रीय वित्त अधिकारियों की एक टीम भेज करके देख लीजिए कि ये लॉस हो रहा है कि नहीं हो रहा है।
केंद्र की तरफ से कोई आश्वासन, कोई आपको रिस्पांस मिला है जब आप लोगों ने बोला कि लॉस हो रहा है? आपने बोला कि आपको सालाना लॉस 2000 करोड़ का है, पंजाब को सालाना लॉस उन्होंने कहा कि 4000 करोड़ का है। आपको केंद्र की तरफ से क्या इसमें रिस्पांस मिला?
आश्वासन मिला होता तो हम लोग भी खुशी खुशी पंजाब और झारखंड गए होते। लेकिन एक चीज़ जो भारतीय लोकतंत्र का तकाजा है कि ये मैसेज नहीं जाए कि राज्य ने राजनीतिक कारणों से विरोध किया है। हम लोगों ने कहा कि मैडम हम लोग अपनी बात रख चुके हैं, अगर आपको नहीं है तो आप जो निर्धारण कर रहे हैं जीएसटी 2 वो साथ में, देश साथ में आपके, लेकिन ये लॉस तो हो रहा है। अब ये हम जानना चाहते हैं आपके इस कॉन्क्लेव के माध्यम से कि आखिर अगर हम बहिष्कार कर देते, बाहर निकल जाते, तो ये भी एक अच्छा संदेश नहीं जाता। लोग कहते कि सत्ता पक्ष और विपक्ष बटा हुआ है। हम लोगों ने एकदम बहुत साफ तरीके से कहा कि जिस स्टेट को लॉस हो रहा है आप उसकी भरपाई करिए।
तो ये पूछ लेते हैं बीजेपी रूल्ड स्टेट से कि क्या व्यू है रेवेन्यू लॉस को लेके, और क्या सरकार को, केंद्र सरकार को कुछ एक भरपाई करनी चाहिए, एक कॉम्पनसेशन का फॉर्मूला एक लगाना चाहिए अब जो जीएसटी 2.0 आया है? सिरसा जी।
धन्यवाद जी। देखिए, पहले तो जीएसटी अपने आप में इस देश का सबसे बड़ा रिफॉर्म है। ये आपको मानना होगा कि 70 साल के इतिहास में इससे बड़ा रिफॉर्म कोई देश में नहीं आया। एक जब आया तब सर्वसम्मति से आया और सबके लिए नया था, तो केंद्र सरकार ने 5 साल का पीरियड रखा कि अगर आपको कोई लॉसेस होते हैं तो गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया बेयर करेगी। जीएसटी की खूबी क्या है कि सभी के लिए बराबर है। अब चाहे झारखंड हो, चाहे उत्तर प्रदेश हो, चाहे पंजाब हो या हरियाणा हो। हरियाणा पंजाब कभी एक होते थे, झारखंड और बिहार कभी एक होते थे। अभी क्या अगर कोई ऐसी परिस्थितियां हों कि कोई स्टेट अपनी मर्जी से 1% बढ़ा रहा हो, दूसरे को ना बढ़ाने दिया जा रहा हो, तो हम मान सकते हैं कि किसी के साथ ही अन्याय हो रहा है। अभी उन्होंने कहा कि हमने जीएसटी के अंदर अपनी बात को रखा, तो अभी सब लोग सुन रहे हैं, तो आपको बताना चाहिए कि आप क्या चाहते थे कि जीएसटी बढ़े या जीएसटी कम हो। आप चाहते थे कि 5% की दर 5% रहे, आप चाहते थे वो 8% हो, 10% हो। आपको बताना चाहिए कि 18% की दर को आप क्या चाहते थे, 18% रहे, 25% हो, 28% हो। और अगर आप चाहते थे कि 18% की दर ही ना हो, सभी ही 5% से हो, तो फिर आपके स्टेट का 2000 करोड़ का जो आप लॉस बताते हैं, तो आप कैलकुलेट करके आएंगे कि उसकी भरपाई कैसे होगी जब आप उसको कम करना चाहते हैं। देखिए, स्टेट्स को ये कांट बी सिलेक्टिव कि कम करिए और कम करिए, और जो हमारे को पैसा चाहिए वो केंद्र दे। ऐसा दो चीजें नहीं हो सकती। दिल्ली स्टेट
आप कह रहे हैं कि अगर बेनिफिट मिल रहा है और प्रदेश में सारी चीजें सस्ती हो रही हैं, तो प्रदेश सरकारों को फिर उसका फिर कहीं ना कहीं एक मैकेनिज्म निकालना पड़ेगा।
तो मैं तो कह रहा हूं कि अगर आप अभी भी कह रहे हैं कि जो आपने बात रखी थी, तो अभी भी बताना चाहिए कि आप उसको जीएसटी कम करना चाहते थे और ये बढ़ाना चाहते थे। और अगर बढ़ाना चाहते तो लोगों के ऊपर बोझ है, और अगर आप उससे भी और कम करना चाहते थे तो इसका मतलब कि आप अपनी स्टडी करके नहीं आए कि आप अपने स्टेट के रेवेन्यू का कॉन्ट्रीब्यूशन कितना होगा केंद्र सरकार के रेवेन्यू के अंदर। जीएसटी एक ऐसी चीज है, आपने कहा रिफॉर्म्स कैसे आते हैं। आपको याद करना चाहता हूं सब लोगों को, जब मोबाइल फोन आया था तब अगर आप सबको याद हो तो 16 रुपये कॉल होती थी, और वो 16 रुपये कॉल केवल शाम को 6 बजे तक होती थी। 32 रुपये कॉल हो जाती थी दिन में। क्या वो 32 रुपये कॉल होनी गलत थी? उस हिसाब से वक्त तब वो भी ठीक थी। आज वो 32 पैसे भी कॉल नहीं रहेगी। जब आप इंटरनेट लेके आए थे तो आपको एक पैक जो मिलता था, जो 5000 रुपये में मिलता था डेटा जितना, उतना आज आपको 399 रुपये या 299 रुपये मिलता है। ना तब का गलत था ना अब का गलत है। ये रिफॉर्म्स है, इसी को रिफॉर्म्स कहते हैं। इकोनॉमी के अंदर रिफॉर्म्स आएंगे, ये देश जिस तरह से तरक्की में आगे बढ़ता जाएगा उसी तरह के रिफॉर्म्स आते जाएंगे। आज ये कहना, आज देश के अंदर एक कितने अच्छे रिफॉर्म्स क्या आए। आज एग्रीकल्चर के बहुत सारे प्रोडक्ट्स के ऊपर एग्रीकल्चर बेस्ड इकोनॉमी है देश की, उसको 5% में ले आए। हेल्थ सर्विसेज के अंदर 0% जीएसटी कर दी। लाइफ सेविंग ड्रग्स के ऊपर 0% जीएसटी कर दी। ये चीज़ों की भी जरूरत है, टाइम के साथ हो सकता है। आज 18% की स्लैब जो है, ये और रिफॉर्म्स आने वाले दिनों में आए तो और बेहतर होते जाएं। लेकिन अगर कोई स्टेट अपना राजस्व नहीं बढ़ा पा रहा, उसका केवल एक ही कारण है, दूसरा कोई कारण नहीं है। उत्तर प्रदेश भी 5% और 18% की स्लैब के ऊपर काम करेगा, दिल्ली भी 8, 5 और 18 पे ही काम करेगा। फिर उसका कारण क्या हो सकता है कि कोई स्टेज लॉसेस में है? क्योंकि अपने स्टेट के अंदर इंडस्ट्री को नहीं ला पा रहा, अपने स्टेट के अंदर कारोबार नहीं कर पा रहा, उसकी अपनी लोकल पॉलिसीज ऐसी हैं कि देश उनके वहां से स्टेट छोड़कर दूसरे स्टेट में फैक्ट्री जा रही हैं, उनके लोकल हालात ऐसे हैं कि लोगों का कॉन्फिडेंस लेवल नहीं है। दिस कुड बी द ओनली रीजन कि जब आप लॉसेस में आ जाएंगे। तो मेरा ये कहना है कि हमें आंकलन ये करना चाहिए, हम बेटर रिसोर्सेज प्रोवाइड करें, हम बेटर कोऑर्डिनेशन लोगों के लिए प्रोवाइड करें, हम लालच फीताशाही खत्म करें, हम स्टेबल गवर्नमेंट रखें, हम अपनी पॉलिसीज को स्टेबल रखें, ताकि ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा लोग इन्वेस्ट करेंगे, आपकी जीएसटी बराबर हो जाएगी। ये केंद्र सरकार के हाथ में नहीं है कि किसी स्टेट की जीएसटी रेवेन्यू को बढ़ाया जा सके या कम किया जा सकते। ये लोकल गवर्नमेंट ही अपनी जीएसटी को बढ़ा सकती है, अच्छे कारोबार करके, अच्छे रेवेन्यूज के एवेन्यूज खोलकर, और वही कम करती है जब स्टेट स्टेबल नहीं रहता।
आप ये कह रहे हैं कि राज्य सरकारों को इसे एक मौके के तौर पे देखना चाहिए कि वो कितने रिफॉर्म्स इस वक्त इस मौके पर खुद अपने एंड पे ला सकते हैं।
आपके सामने ही है ना, हरियाणा भी पंजाब से निकल कर गया है। अगर हरियाणा सेल्फ सफिशिएंट हो रहा है, इट मींस कि कोई कमी है जो हमें ढूंढने की जरूरत है, बजाय कि हम ठीकरा दूसरों पे जाकर फोड़ें। हम ये ढूंढें कि कौन सी ऐसी कमी है जिसके कारण मेरे स्टेट के अंदर इंडस्ट्री जा रही है, मेरे स्टेट में इंडस्ट्री कम हो गई है, मेरे स्टेट में बिजनेस कम हुआ है, तो वो ढूंढना पड़ेगा कारण। बस वही कारण है जिसके कारण हमें दिक्कत आ रही है, और इन चीजों को हमें ठीक करना होगा। लेकिन अगर पॉलिटिकली एक दूसरे पर फोड़ना है तो हम ना स्टेट का भला कर पाएंगे ना लोगों का भला कर पाएंगे।
बिल्कुल चीमा जी, ये भी तो एक सच है कि अगर हम ऋण की बात करें, डेट की बात करें, तो पंजाब जो है इस देश में सबसे ज्यादा उसमें डेट है। 46% जो है वो डेट टू जीडीपी का रेशो है, स्टेट जीडीपी का रेशो है। तो ये भी एक सच्चाई है कि कहीं ना कहीं राज्य सरकारों को भी इस विषय पे काम करना पड़ेगा, कैसे वो अपने रेवेन्यूज आगे बढ़ा सके।
गौरी जी, आप डेट और जीएसटी को एक साथ नहीं देख सकते। पंजाब एक एग्रीकल्चर स्टेट है, ये पूरा देश जानता है। देश की फूड बाउल में सबसे ज़्यादा कंट्रीब्यूशन किस स्टेट की है? वो पंजाब स्टेट की है। पंजाब में एक परचेज टैक्स लगा हुआ था, परचेज टैक्स जो है वो सबस्यूम हुआ जीएसटी में। मैं अकेले एक टैक्स की बात करता हूँ, एक टैक्स सिस्टम की बात करता हूँ, उसमें से एनुअली हमारा कितना लॉस हुआ है? 4000 करोड़ रुपया, 4000 करोड़ रुपया हमारा एनुअली जो है परचेज टैक्स में लॉस हुआ, क्योंकि पंजाब एक एग्रीकल्चरल स्टेट है। पंजाब का लगभग 550 किलोमीटर का एक लंबा बॉर्डर जो है वो पाकिस्तान से लगता है। अभी रिसेंटली वहाँ पे आपको देश को पता है, सबसे ज़्यादा जब पाकिस्तान के साथ टेंशन पैदा हुई तो पंजाब आगे खड़ा। तो ये बात में हमें ध्यान में रखनी चाहिए, ये नहीं कि किस स्टेट की इकॉनमी कैसे चलती है। जहाँ प्रोडक्शन स्टेट है, जहाँ प्रोडक्शन स्टेट है, कर्नाटक प्रोडक्शन स्टेट है, पंजाब में प्रोडक्शन स्टेट है, जहाँ पे प्रोडक्शन होती है, जहाँ पे ज़्यादा इंडस्ट्री है, उनका जीएसटी कम हो रहा है। जहाँ पे ज़्यादा कंजम्पशन है, क्योंकि जीएसटी जो है वो कंजम्पशन बेस्ड टैक्स है, डेस्टिनेशन बेस्ड टैक्स है। डेस्टिनेशन कहाँ है? डेस्टिनेशन वहाँ है जहाँ पॉपुलेशन ज़्यादा है। डेस्टिनेशन कहाँ, कंजम्पशन कहाँ है? जहाँ पॉपुलेशन ज़्यादा है। इसका मतलब क्या है कि जहाँ प्रोडक्शन होती है उन राज्यों का जो जीएसटी वो कम हो रहा है, जहाँ कंजम्पशन हो रही है उन राज्यों का जीएसटी बढ़ रहा है। बेसिक थ्योरी पे हमें उसको चेंज करना होगा, उसमें हमें बड़े बदलाव की ओर बढ़ना होगा। क्योंकि मैं पहले बोल चुका हूँ कि हमने 27 टाइम कंजम्पशन दे चुके हैं 8 साल में। 8 साल में 27 बार जो है कंजम्पशन मिल चुकी है, और 15 बार इससे पहले, ये 16 टाइम है, 15 टाइम पहले रेट रिडक्शन हो चुका है डिफरेंट स्लैब्स में। तो क्यों नहीं अब तक स्टेटों की इकॉनमी स्टेबल हो पाई? मैं पंजाब की बात नहीं करता, आप हरियाणा की देख लीजिए। क्यों नहीं गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया ने हमारे सामने डाटा रखा कि हरियाणा का ये है, उत्तर प्रदेश का ये है, झारखंड का ये है, महाराष्ट्र का ये है, अपना कर्नाटका का ये है। दूसरे राज्यों का डाटा हमारे पास रखते ना कि प्री जीएसटी, हमने बिल्कुल जीएसटी काउंसिल में हमने ये डिमांड रखी थी कि चर्चा करने से पहले 2017 के पहले क्या व्यू था स्टेटों का, उनकी इकॉनमी कहाँ खड़ी थी, क्या वो ग्रो कर रहे थे या उनकी इकॉनमी डिक्लाइन हो रही थी, उसका डाटा जो है वो प्रेजेंट कीजिए। और 2017 से लेकर 2025 तक कहाँ को आगे बढ़ पाए, जब पीछे हो गए। तो ये उसके आने के बाद ही हम किसी कंक्लूजन पे पहुंचते ना कि जीएसटी में आने के बाद हम प्रोग्रेस कर रहे हैं, या हमारा स्टेट कर रहा है, या हमारा देश कर रहा है। अब बात सिंपल सी है कि आप बता दीजिए मेरे को, 2017 में बासमती का रेट क्या था 1 किलो का? 1 किलो का क्या था? 60 से लेके 80%, 60 रुपए या 80 रुपए। अब कितना हो गया? 120 रुपए 1 केजी का, 1 केजी का। तो रेट आम लोगों को क्या फर्क पड़ा? जो आम लोग हैं देश के, जो आम जनता है, उसको जीएसटी का रेट रिडक्शन का फायदा हुआ या नहीं हुआ? सबसे बड़ी बात तो यह है, अब भी फायदा होगा या नहीं होगा? रेट तो मैं पिछले 8 साल की बात कर रहा हूँ, 8 साल में 40 से लेके 50% तक
तो अब जाके अगर रेट कम होंगे, अब रेट कम होंगे तभी तो फायदा होगा, अब रेट कम होंगे तभी तो फायदा होगा।
मैं
यही तो बात हो रही
वही
है।
बात आपके सामने रखना चाहता हूं कि क्या आम जनता को फायदा होगा या नहीं होगा।
अच्छा, तो
पिछले
ये
8 सालों
किशोर
में
जी
तो-
से भी पूछ लेते हैं।
पिछले 8
जी।
सालों में तो मेरे को फायदा नहीं दिखा कि आने वाले समय में फायदा होगा, हम ऐसी अपेक्षा
अच्छा,
कर सकते हैं।
बाकी दोनों मंत्रियों से भी पूछ लेते हैं। और अब मैंने बाद में आपसे फिर से ये पूछा कि क्या आपने इतनी गर्मजोशी से जीएसटी काउंसिल में ये सारी बातें बोली जो आप यहाँ कह रहे हैं, क्योंकि वहां तो सर्वसहमति से सारे निर्णय हुए और फिर ये लग रहा है कि बाद में आके सारी बातें की जाएंगी।
हमने अपनी बात बिल्कुल वहाँ जीएसटी काउंसिल में हमने भी रखी, हमारे
किशोर जी
साथी
से
ने
पूछ
भी
लेती हूँ मैं, वो ये
सभी लोगों ने अपनी बात रखी।
मैं ये कहना चाह रही हूँ, आखिरी सवाल है मेरा आप दोनों से।
आपके मन में जो शंका है
जी, मेरे मन में कोई शंका नहीं है, मैं तो पूछ रही हूँ।
नहीं, आपने कहा कि कहीं ऐसा तो नहीं कि वहाँ आपने विरोध नहीं किया और बाहर मौका मिला है तो आप बाहर विरोध कर रहे हैं। जी नहीं, 11 बजे से जो मीटिंग चली है वो रात में 8 बजे तक मीटिंग चली है।
अच्छा,
हम लोगों ने तार्किक दृष्टिकोण से अपनी बातों को रखा है, अपने पक्ष को रखा है, अपने राज्य की समस्याओं से
आपने
अवगत
पहले
है।
ये बोला कि मिलके हम लोगों ने इसलिए निर्णय लिया साथ में आने का क्योंकि फेडरलिज्म में भी ये होना चाहिए कि सब लोग एक साथ हैं, जीएसटी के निर्णय पे सब लोग एक साथ हैं। तो जब सब एक साथ हैं तो फिर आगे की बात होनी चाहिए कि किस तरह से ये मैं आपसे एक सवाल पूछना चाहती हूँ, वो ये कि अब राज्यों के स्तर पे ये कैसे इंश्योर किया जाएगा कि जो प्राइस कम हो गई है किसी एक गुड्स की, वो कैसे एंड कंज्यूमर के लिए वाकई सस्ती हो जाए, ये कैसे राज्य सरकारें इंश्योर करेंगी?
पहले तो मैं अपने प्रिय मित्र के बातों का जवाब दे दूं। इन्होंने कहा कि सारी बातें निर्भर केंद्र पर होंगी, राज्यों को भी अपने पैरों पर खड़ा होना होगा, अपने राजस्व को बढ़ाना होगा। अगर आप ये मानते हैं कि सभी राज्य अपने में सक्षम थे तो 2017 में जीएसटी लागू करने के साथ ही यह निर्णय आपका था कि जो मैन्युफैक्चरिंग स्टेट है उनको हम 5 वर्षों तक के लिए कंपनसेशन देंगे। आप तो मानते थे कि ऐसे भी राज्य हैं इस देश में जिनको इस जीएसटी से लॉस होने वाला है। ये जीएसटी 2 लागू करने के पहले आपको केंद्र को इतना देख लेना चाहिए था कि क्या 5 वर्ष जो कंपनसेशन मिला उन राज्यों को जो मैन्युफैक्चरिंग स्टेट है उन वो कहाँ इस्टेब्लिश कर रहे हैं।
ऐसे कितना कंपनसेशन देना चाहिए? 5 साल और 5 साल और 5 साल और हमें कितना टाइम तक ये रोड मैप बनाना चाहिए जब तक राज्य अपने पैरों पे ना
मैंने वित्त मंत्री जी को कहा है उसी बैठक में, जीएसटी काउंसिल की बैठक में, कि आप तब तक दीजिए,
तब तक देते रहिए जब तक वो
पहले मेरी बात सुन लीजिए। आप तब तक दीजिए जब तक कि आप आकलन न कर लें, आपके वित्तीय अधिकारी इस बात की समीक्षा न कर लें कि अब झारखंड को, अब हिमाचल को पैसे की जरूरत नहीं है, आर्थिक सहयोग की जरूरत नहीं। अब चाहे वो 10 साल लगे या 15
साल हो, चाहे 20 साल हो,
हाँ,
सरकारें आए जाएं,
बिल्कुल।
फाइनेंस कमीशन 16 के बाद 17 आए,
बिल्कुल। इसलिए मैं कह रहा हूँ इस बात को थोड़ा सा समय हम और लेते हैं। आप बतला रहे हैं कि अभी दर हम लोगों ने कम कर दिया। ये 7-8 वर्षों में 1,24,000 जीएसटी जो प्राप्त किया केंद्र, तो आज जो दर कम कर रहे हैं ये 7-8 वर्षों में वही उपभोक्ताओं से जो आप पैसा ले रहे थे, ये बेईमानी था कि नहीं था? ये गलत
ऐसा
निर्णय
करते
था कि
सिरसा
नहीं
जी
था?
से ये सवाल पूछते हैं, ये
मैंने
उनसे
तो आपको
बोलते
बताया कि
पर
कांग्रेस
एक
की
मैं
सरकार
सवाल और
ने-
ऐड करूंगी आपसे,
सुनिए,
क्योंकि
इनके में एक बात
मेरी
का
बात
जवाब दे देता
समाप्त-
हूं
एक सवाल
कि
आपसे
जो
ऐड कर
32
देती हूँ,
रुपए
फिर हम
कॉल
wrap up
मिनट
करेंगे
देते
इस
रहे,
चर्चा को। बहुत
जो
रूप
32
है।
रुपए मिनट देते रहे, क्या उनसे बेईमानी हुई? और हुई तो उसमें पार्टनर रहे, ये तो इन्हीं को उसी का जवाब देना चाहिए। मंत्री बने या सरकारों में तो उसी से शुरुआत कर देनी चाहिए। और अगर हुई तो उसको पैसे को लौटाने का ये क्या प्रोसेस अडॉप्ट करेंगे? देखिए, पॉलिटिकल स्टेटमेंट्स अलग होती हैं, पॉलिटिकल मंचों के ऊपर पॉलिटिकल स्टेटमेंट्स ठीक लगती हैं। जैसे आपने कहा कि जब जीएसटी काउंसिल की बैठक होती है उसके अंदर सर्वसम्मति के अंदर सब लोग आते हैं, क्योंकि अंदर जब वहाँ पे डिटेल डिस्कशन होती है तब आंकड़ों के साथ होती है, तब आपकी इंडस्ट्री ग्रोथ क्या हो रही है, तब आप क्या आपकी कंजप्शन कितनी हो, सबके साथ ग्रोथ, तब आप ये चैलेंज नहीं कर सकते। लेकिन आज टीवी चैनल पर हम आके कर सकते हैं।
जी, क्योंकि हम बात कर रहे हैं, ये जैसा मैंने कहा ये चर्चा के 2 रूप हैं, इसके आर्थिक और राजनीतिक दोनों रूप हैं। एक सवाल मैं आपसे इसलिए पूछूंगी कि ऑपोजिशन के सारे नेताओं ने ये बोला कि इसकी टाइमिंग क्या, हम तो बहुत समय से कह रहे थे कि रेट कम होने चाहिए, हम 17 से कह रहे थे जब से शुरुआत हुई कि रेट कम होने चाहिए, तो अभी ही क्यों हुआ, इसकी टाइमिंग क्यों इस वक्त ही हुई, इसका जवाब दीजिए।
देखिए, जीएसटी के दायरे में जैसे जैसे लोग बढ़ते जा रहे हैं, जैसे जैसे कारोबार बढ़ते जा रहे हैं और उसी तरीके से उसकी अमाउंट बढ़ता जा रहा है, उसकी स्लैब्स को नीचे आएंगे स्वाभाविक तौर पर। अभी जब देश के अंदर 1% नंबर ऑफ परसेंटेज आज जीएसटी के साथ कनेक्टेड है, और हो सकता है आने वाले दिनों में इसकी ग्रोथ रेट जैसे बढ़ेगी और इसके साथ जीएसटी के उपयोगिता बढ़ते जाएंगे और कम होते जाएंगे। ये तो एक रिफॉर्म्स हैं जो ऑन गोइंग हैं। मैंने आगे शुरू करते हुए फिर से कहता हूं, जब 32 रुपए कॉल फोन करते थे तभी यही मोबाइल फोन था, और आज वो कॉल करते करते 10 पैसे पे आ गई है, तब भी वही फोन है। तो चीजें तो बदलेंगी जैसे जैसे रिफॉर्म्स आएंगे, इसी को रिफॉर्म्स कहते हैं। देश कहां से चला था आज आप देखिए, आप आज से 10 साल पहले अगर आप ट्रेवल करते थे तो जो एयर फेयर की अगर आप कैलकुलेशन करें तो उससे 20 गुना होना चाहिए, लेकिन नहीं है, वहीं पर चलता आ रहा है, क्योंकि हर चीज एक दूसरे से कनेक्टेड है। जैसी उसकी ग्रोथ है, ग्रोथ के साथ हर चीज कनेक्टेड है, और इसी तरह हमारे देश की ग्रोथ है, ग्रोथ की स्पीड इतनी ज्यादा तेज है, उस ग्रोथ के साथ साथ चीजें बदलती जा रही हैं। अगर हमें देश की ग्रोथ ना हुई तो अच्छी बात नहीं है। मुझे लगता है हम सबको इस बात की बधाई देनी चाहिए कि शायद जो कल्पना नहीं की होगी इतनी जल्दी हम रिकवर कर पाएंगे। हमारा ग्रोथ रेट इतना बढ़ रहा है, उससे देश के अंदर एक जल्दी तरक्की आ रही है और हमारे स्लैब्स कम हो रहे हैं, लोगों को सस्ती चीजें मिल रही हैं, तो मिलनी चाहिए और सस्ती मिलनी चाहिए।
जी, चर्चा को यहीं विराम देते हैं। इस चर्चा के बहुत प्रारूप हैं और हम ये चर्चा आगे भी करेंगे।
प्लीज विराम मत दीजिए।
बहुत प्रश्न हम भी
थोड़ा समय दीजिए। हम लोग बहुत दूर से आए और बहुत उम्मीद से आए। सरकार से तो उम्मीद नहीं है, केंद्र सरकार से, लेकिन
क्यों आप तो वहां बैठे हुए थे, आपने वहां पे बोला है, आप कह रहे हैं इतनी गर्मजोशी से तब भी बोला है।
एनडीटीवी से बहुत उम्मीद है, कम से कम ये बातें पूरे देश की जनता तक जाएगी, पहुंचेगी ये बात। क्या बात करते हैं आपने कहा, मैडम एक मिनट, आपने कहा, हमारे मित्र ने कहा कि राज्य को अपने पैरों पर खड़ा होना चाहिए, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल क्या प्रोविजन है, केंद्र और राज्य में
मेरी बात को दोनों में बैठे, मैंने ये नहीं कहा।
केंद्र और राज्य,
मंत्री जी मैंने कहा,
आप जब बोल रहे थे तो मैं नहीं बोल रहा था,
मैंने बोला नहीं है।
मान्यवर मुझको कह लेने दीजिए, उसके बाद आप बोलिए। आपको अपने पैरों पर खड़ा होना चाहिए था, अपनी इकोनॉमी को स्ट्रॉन्ग करनी चाहिए थी। तो क्या ये जो संवैधानिक व्यवस्था है कि केंद्र राज्यों से जो कर लेगा और उस हिस्सेदारी जो राज्यों को देगा, ये व्यवस्था आप समाप्त करना चाहते हैं क्या? केंद्र सिर्फ अपने आप में है,
मेरे को बोलने का मैंने कहा ही नहीं
रहेगा क्या?
मैंने कहा कि बाकी राज्य जो हैं वो आपके बराबर ही हैं, अगर ग्रोथ रेट बाकियों की बढ़ रही है हमें भी बढ़ानी चाहिए।
बात मैं कर रहा हूं,
इसमें कुछ गलत नहीं है।
झारखंड की बात मैं कर रहा हूं। आप करों को कम करके ये बताना चाह रहे हैं कि हम सुधार कर रहे हैं। एक तरफ तो 8 बरस उसी जनता से 1 करोड़
तो बढ़ाने चाहिए, करिए, कम करने चाहिए, कम से कम ये तो क्लैरिटी आ जाए।
बोलने दीजिए।
नहीं, मैं आखिरी मान गया
जब आप बोलते थे,
आपने मेरा नाम लेके कहा तब मैंने बोला,
हम एकदम चुप रहते।
आपने मेरा नाम लेके बोला, मैं तब बोलने को मजबूर हुआ।
मैडम की तरफ मैं इशारा करता हूँ कि मुझको बोलने का अवसर चाहिए, मैं बोलना चाहता हूं।
ये चर्चा जो है हम मंच के बाहर भी कंटिन्यू करेंगे, क्योंकि बहुत प्रश्न हैं अभी भी, जो अभी मैं उम्मीद करती हूँ, और यही इस पूरी कॉन्क्लेव का उद्देश्य है कि जितने हमने प्रश्न उठाए इन प्रश्नों का ही उत्तर मिले इस कॉन्क्लेव।
मैं आखिरी 2 पंक्ति कह रहा हूँ। देखिए, केंद्र सरकार, वर्तमान केंद्र सरकार की एकदम मानसिकता बन गई है कि जिस स्टेट में उनकी सरकार नहीं है उनके साथ सौतेला व्यवहार किया जाए। झारखंड को 1,40,000 करोड़ रुपया कोयला के ऊपर बकाया है, ये पैसा नहीं मिल रहा है। अनुदान की राशि झारखंड को सही समय पर नहीं मिलती है। केंद्रीय करों में झारखंड की जो हिस्सेदारी है वो सही समय पर हमें नहीं मिलती है। और आप बात कर रहे हैं कि साहब केंद्र और राज्य, केंद्र जो निर्णय ले रहा है राज्य आपके साथ खड़ा हो जाए, पर वहाँ झारखंड की स्थिति अलग है। हमारे यहाँ जो गरीबी रेखा से नीचे रहने वाले लोग हैं मैडम, वो महुआ खाती हैं, वो मकई का घाटा खाती हैं, वो पिज्जा, बर्गर और पनीर परोठा नहीं खाती है। उसका क्या होगा?
मैं मंत्री जी का जवाब दूंगा तो फिर पीड़ा हो जाएगी। अब आपके अगर आपके आईएएस के घरों से 100-100 करोड़ रुपए मिलेगा, अगर एक आईएएस के घर से 100-100 करोड़ मिलेगा तो लोग बेचारे मजबूरी हो जाएंगे मुआ खाने के लिए। बताइए मैं ठीक कह रहा हूँ गलत कह रहा हूँ? तो आपको देखना चाहिए कि एक मंत्री एक घर से 100-100 करोड़ रुपए आईएएस के घर से ना मिले, पॉलिटिकल करप्शन खत्म हो जाए, तो ये सारी ठीक चीज हो सकती है। ये आपको उसके ऊपर रोक लगानी होगी। मैं तो वहां जाकर नहीं लगा सकता, ना ही केंद्र सरकार लगा सकती है। तो मेरा ये जरूर आपसे आग्रह है,
इसी पर चर्चा कर लीजिए, इसी पर चर्चा हो जाए कि कौन लोग बैंकों से हजारों करोड़ रुपया लेकर के बाहर भाग गए।
देखिए हम जीएसटी से कौन सी चर्चा में चले गए हैं?
इन्होंने कहा, इन्होंने करप्शन की बात,
जीएसटी की चर्चा पे एक बात कहना चाहता हूं कि जो
करप्शन की बात
नहीं, चर्चा चाहिए और ये पूछना चाहिए कि लोन देने
इस चर्चा को यही विराम देते हैं, इस चर्चा को यही विराम देते हैं। प्रश्न बहुत है। अभी तो मैंने ये भी नहीं पूछा कि क्या इतनी गर्मजोशी से, क्या इतनी बहस वाकई जीएसटी काउंसिल में हुई, या ये सारी ऊर्जा आपने बाहर के लिए समेट रखी थी?
पूरा आदर्श,
हमने पूरा वहां पे अपनी बात रखी।
आदर्श और गरिमा
इस चर्चा को विराम देते हैं। ये सारे प्रश्नों के उत्तर हमें शाम तक मिलेंगे, शाम तक मिलेंगे। निर्मला सीतारमण जी हमारे साथ जुड़ेंगी। And it is expected that these questions that are being raised by the states in terms of their finances, the roadmap that lies ahead, and questions with regard to devolution of tax revenues between the center and state could be some of those part of those answers that the finance minister will give when she shares her roadmap for what lies ahead in India's reform agenda. Thank you so much for being part of this. Thank you so much.
हम नेक्स्ट जनरेशन जीएसटी रिफॉर्म्स लेकर के आ रहे हैं ये दिवाली के अंदर.
I think it will have a very positive impact on the GDP.
A landmark reform, a new economic chapter, a nation rising together. NDTV Profit presents the GST Conclave with Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, policymakers and industry leaders reflecting on GST 2.0 and charting the road ahead. NDTV Profit GST Conclave, reforms for a resurgent India. Only on NDTV Profit.
We see the problems, but you as a social entrepreneur see the solutions. You are not just creating solution, you are creating a future where everyone has a chance to thrive. For the change makers, the innovators, the ones building a better world, one solution at a time. The Adani Green Talk Social Impact Awards are created for you, inviting social entrepreneurs to apply. Green Talk Social Impact Awards 2025, where innovation meets impact.
Presenting the all-knowing, all-powerful Tech Guru.
Whoa. Guru? I'm no guru.
Okay.
I'm just a guy who loves his tech.
A show where the mysteries of megabytes and motherboards shall be unraveled.
Bro, nobody talks like that.
Co-powered by National Stock Exchange. Innovation partner, Weka, India's largest selling UPVC window. Technology partner, Tally Prime, India's favorite business software. Brought to you by Apar Suraksha, जिस पे देश करे भरोसा.
And it's very rarely that you get a brand name that in itself is evocative of what the market sentiment ought to be. I mean, I don't think there's anybody in the market who's here for losses. I think we're all here for profit, right? So fundamentally, what we said is that let's understand what the word profit means. It's always been, I mean, you know, if you really look at it, it's a dirty word, right? It's what people used to say, that for the longest time, profit has always been like a dirty word. It has been always seen as the privilege of the few. But if we have an aspiration to be a 5 trillion sort of an economy, then can profit really remain exclusive, right? If you really look at it, I mean, you know, I'd like to quote a bit of Arthashastra, right? And it's very important. Whenever I've been in doubt, I've always gone back to the scriptures, right? They always say that profit is essential. I mean, there is nothing, you know, we always say, dharma, artha, kama, moksha. So profit is as important as the dharma is, right? And it says wealth is to be pursued, but in a way that it sustains the society and the state. So there's this beautiful phrase which is all about mansa, vacha, karmana. And this was at the center of everything. I mean, if three of these things really come together, then I think profit is not, ceases to be that slightly exclusive, dirty word, right? This triad basically means thought, word, and deed. In the dharmic framework, mansa is about the intention behind the wealth creation, the transparency, which is vacha, the honesty in contracts, and then of course karmana, which is the ethical conduct. Where, you know, so when three of these things come together, this becomes the essence of where profit is, right? So profit is achieved in alignment with these three, and that is supposed to be shuddha, right? Even in our civilization thought, profit was never just a number, right? The Arthashastra showed us that the profit must always be aligned with the mansa, vacha, karmana, right? And in this pursuit, when, you know, with this clarity, when we move ahead, profit becomes more than a private gain. It becomes an opportunity for all to get. It's the same shot that we all get to take. And this is the true democratization of profit. And I think we're living in the age of democratization, right? I mean, I think the ministers here really spoke about the fact that reforms are going to be continuous. It is always going to be, there's always nothing is inevitable but change, right? Things will keep on changing. And I think, democratization is going to be at the key of everything. So Bharat and profit in the age of global turmoil. I mean, we are living through an incredibly interesting time, right? It's better, it's more exciting than most of the thrillers that we see. But if you really look at it at the ground level, today a shopkeeper in Jaipur can sell nationwide on e-commerce. A young investor can buy shares even for $100. A woman entrepreneur in Kochi can scale a startup just through the understanding of the market, right? In the last 10 years, if you see, our democracy has also been sort of democratized, right? Nowhere is it clearer than in the equity partnership, participation that you see. So in 2025, if you really look at the numbers, 2.4 crore demat accounts were opened. And strikingly contrasting in 2025, that trickle has become a flood. 19.2 crore accounts, 17 crore new investors have been added in a whole decade, right? In FY25 alone, it's like record 4.1 crore accounts in a single year. That's more than the population of most of the, many countries in the world. Every month, nearly 4 million Indians join the market, and every minute, 100 new accounts are opened. So, and this is where the whole old guard is going. And I was really amazed to know that 75% of these accounts are being opened by people under the age of 30, right? And this is a generation that would rather sort of own than really observe. It's no longer, profit is no longer the privilege of a few people who played the market in the olden time. It's today everybody, whether you're sitting in your living room, whether you're really sitting as an entrepreneur, whether you're a housewife, right? Every bit of that matters, right? Now, 25% of these investors are women now. So 1 in 4 women are, investors are women. Brilliant, right? Even, this was quite interesting. I saw a very interesting research which says that 84% of homemakers, and they are not a part of the workforce, homemakers are involved in investment decision, right? So now, does that mean that, does this change the landscape of how a news channel must sort of speak to the audience? It's going to be speaking to it's not going to speak to the few, it's going to speak to the new, right? So this was at the crux of what we wanted to build when we started looking at NDTV Profit. Even GST has been simplified, right? It's broke down the straight barriers and brought millions of small players into the formal foray. So everything is sort of structuring itself to a democratized infrastructure. And today, everyone is in the system and everyone has a chance to benefit. And today, this is where the whole take has been that from Dalal Street to every street, democracy is now demat, right? And they are all here for one thing, profit, right? Profit is no longer the privilege of the few. It is the possibility of the many. NDTV Profit is here to make that a probability and possibility real, right? And this has been at the crux of the communication that we want to put out as well. And I think there can't be more exciting time. When you're really reinventing a business news channel, this is going to be the channel that translates a lot of policies. It's going to include new audiences. This is going to be a very exciting time for us. And we are very excited to be a part of this journey. This is where, every business, I'm sure the agenda is to sort of step up and really bridge the knowledge gaps, highlight the opportunities a lot more, and make profit a shared possibility. So not just for a few, but also for the new. This is where we are. I'm going to play a short video which will leave you with the new line, the slogan that we have all arrived at, which with much more unanimous consensus than what I saw in the last one. But very excited to sort of showcase this. Here we go. So that's NDTV Profit 2.0 for you, right? So amazing. Thank you very much. Very exciting journey. Thank you, Rahul, Gaurav, Tamanna, and team. Really amazed and really a lot of congratulations on this new journey.
I'll need you to stay on stage. Well, that's a wonderful and exciting proposition, Rajan. Thank you. Please stay with us on stage. I'll also request Tamanna Inamdar, NDTV Profit Managing Editor, and Neeraj Shah, NDTV Profit Markets Editor, to now join us on stage.
Raj, first of all, thank you. Thank you to Raj and Creative Land Asia. This was just amazing. The ability to distill our conversations and our editorial thought into this is just brilliant, the way you've put it together. And I think it truly talks about how the will and the aspiration to grow is so democratized. It's not in the hands of a few. You'll be surprised how many of our viewers, and we're an English channel, are outside the top 6 or top 8 cities. What was the thought that came to your mind when you saw the product, heard the brief, and the concept of a business channel?
So, in fact, when we started the journey, we always look at the truth about the society and where it is, the truth about the brand, and when there's a sweet spot, then we have a great idea. So the product and the brand spoke to us, right? And there is a renewed energy, right? I can also see the kind of shows that you're putting together. And there are segments, there are things for entrepreneurs. I could see the way you have, you're also moving into a lot of bite-sized content as well. There is a certain connectedness, which is, today you have to be seamless from the TV to the web, all of those sort of things. And then when we look at the aspiration of the society, I mean, today more and more, in most of the boardrooms that I sort of venture into, there's always a conversation of the young India. Right, and I was astonished to see that. I mean, when I looked at the numbers, at 75% of the new guys are all under 30. That's incredible. And right, today, a lot of the online platforms have made it so easy for a lot of these people to come in. So there needs to be a new language. And when I saw that intent in the meetings that we had, when I saw that there was this serious intent, I mean, this is finally the product is in the editorial, right? And it's one thing for us to sit down and say that, okay, this is what the image has to be as far as the marketing is concerned. But this was a beautiful sweet spot where we saw that the product aligned beautifully well with the sentiment of the society, and it's just onwards and upwards.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm guessing when you saw the channel as well, in a conversation that you had told us, that seeing the product as it comes out makes you believe that we are not talking down to any investor, right? We're making the guests talk to the Aam Aadmi as they stand, for everybody to be able to profit from it.
Absolutely with you. In fact, this is a statement that I used in one of the meetings, and I know it's politically incorrect to say that, but I've always felt that, business channels have become like one of those silent thing that runs with tickers everywhere, right? And that's what I'm saying. It's all about the intent. Finally, at the end of the day, the fact that you're saying that we don't want to talk down, right? What we want to do is we want to have a conversation, and that is the intent that I see, and that malleability today is very, very important, right? And I know that. I mean, and I wanted to actually turn the table and also sort of ask you a question. What is your view on, I mean, today a lot of people get a lot of their views out of the finfluencers and and I've always wanted to ask this, and sorry I'm putting you on the spot right on the stage, because this is always a debate, right? Even in my head. So what is your view as somebody who's sort of,
I'm glad you asked that, Raj, because we keep hearing this about news, and we keep hearing this about business news as well. And anyone you talk to, they say कि हम तो TV नहीं देखते हैं, हम news नहीं देखते हैं. But somehow everyone knows what's happening on the news. So clearly they're watching it somewhere, maybe not on a box, but on a website, on a YouTube stream, on a platform. The thing about finfluencers are they have done a great job in part in bringing information to people in a simple language. But can you trust what they are saying? When we're talking about this young audience who has to have the right information. They need to be protected. When we put something out, it is with a 10 feet thick wall of guardrails. Where journalists, there's credibility, there's regulatory action, there's corporate governance. We think about everything. I mean, you go to a influencer and look at the kind of crackdown that SEBI has had, regulators have had. So my point is that we are here to provide a safe, smart, and simple space for you to grow. And yes, we want for you to profit.
It's amazing, and I mean, just a really interesting program idea right now. Bring in a few influencers and debate this with them. It'll be brilliant, right? Because I agree, and I really like the fact that, you know, there are a lot of, because this is our path of least resistance, right? And they are there. It'll be quite interesting to really sort of put them on the spot, just like you do with.
No, not to run down anyone or what anyone is doing, but we are here. NDTV Profit is for your profit, so we are here in any form that you need.
Yeah, and just that last point that I'll add here, I mean, what we are trying to effectively do out here is responsible journalism, talking to the audience who wants to hear us, and we're thinking of the audience and what every minute of the audience spending on a television channel or across our social media handles, what do they get out of it? Are we doing work enough for that? That is the question in the newsroom every single day.
No, really incredible. You know, in fact, one of the other things that I wanted to ask you was that, you know, 84% of non-working force in this country are participating in financial discussions. How are you gearing up to talk to that audience as well? Because they're a very interesting bunch of people out there. I mean, the homemaker at home, how do we make that more relevant?
No, we are speaking to everyone. We are speaking to everyone, whether you understand what EBITDA is or not. You don't have to. You don't have to know what ARPO is, but we'll still tell you what a telecom stock will do. You don't need to know what is RBOP. We will tell you what a hospital stock will do. That is what we are here for, and hopefully we will get all of more and more viewers to join in on our journey. We have to wrap it up. I have that in my ear, but thank you again, Raj. This has just been a brilliant distilling of what we stand for.
Thank you very much. I love that. No jargons.
No jargons.
We see the problems, but you as a social entrepreneur see the solutions. You are not just creating solution, you are creating a future where everyone has a chance to thrive. For the change makers, the innovators, the ones building a better world, one solution at a time. The Adani Green Talk Social Impact Awards are created for you, inviting social entrepreneurs to apply. Green Talk Social Impact Awards 2025, where innovation meets impact.
Presenting the all-knowing, all-powerful Tech Guru.
Whoa. Guru? I'm no guru.
Okay.
I'm just a guy who loves his tech.
A show where the mysteries of megabytes and motherboards shall be unraveled.
Bro, nobody talks like that anymore. This is all about connected ecosystems, EVs and AI.
Co-powered by National Stock Exchange. Innovation partner, Weka, India's largest selling UPVC window. Technology partner, Tally Prime, India's favorite business software. Brought to you by Apar Suraksha, जिस पे देश करे भरोसा.
No better guest to do this panel than Shri Sanjay Kumar Agarwal. And Mr. Agarwal, thank you so much for taking the time out and being with us here.
Thank you,
well, you know, the question that comes to mind is, ye dil mange more, and what more can come in. But you would have heard the first panel out here. And obviously, there is a lot of conversation, debate, arguments, and discussions around whether this is the best form of ushering in GST 2.0 or are there some chinks in the armor that can be resolved or conversed upon? What are your thoughts here? Because you would have received a lot of feedback from all parties concerned.
Yeah, let me begin with what was the philosophy behind this entire reform. In fact, GST has completed 8 years of its journey. GST as a tax system has stabilized, and the revenue growth from GST was quite robust. In fact, last year, total GST collection was to the tune of 22 lakh crore. So this is the right time to carry out this transformational next generation reforms. And in this exercise, whatever was being criticized about GST, that it has led to a lot of complexity and there is uncertainty and instability in the mind of taxpayers because of the many disputes which were arising because of multiple rates, 5%, 8%, 5%, 12%, 18%, or 28%. So it was thought that simplification, yes, is required, and therefore the thought was to bring one standard rate and one merit rate. Apart from that, a lot of process reforms have been carried out in it. And it's a journey. In fact, on rate part, a lot of rationalization has been done. Goods have been put either on 18% or on 5%, depending upon the merit of the goods. As far as processes are concerned, the two processes where every taxpayer is involved is first to come into the GST ecosystem, they have to take the registration. And on registration, we were receiving a lot of complaints about that delays in registration. So it was thought that in GST process, the registration process was tightened because of the entry of a lot of fake entities who were there to pass on fake ITC. So it was thought that entities which are not concerned with passing of ITC were issuing mostly B2C invoices. Why in their cases cannot be a simplified registration process? That was a thought to bring a very simplified GST registration scheme, and where on the basis of their opting for not passing on more than 2.5 lakh as per month as GST, ITC. So they are granted a simplified registration within 3 working days by the system automatically. Similarly, processes have been simplified for granting the refunds. But lot more is in pipeline on the processes front. On rates, I will not say, because rates, we need stability. That was one of the major asks of the industry. So, but on processes, yeah, a lot more things are in pipeline on return filing so that the mismatches may not happen. And because if a mismatch happens, then naturally to resolve that mismatch, a lot of work is to be done, which leads to compliance burden on taxpayers. So that is next in pipeline.
I would like to ask, sir, that you rightly mentioned about the revenue. This rate cut would have some impact on the revenue collection, at least for the near term. Is there any estimates here, and how confident are you to meeting the budget estimates?
Shrimi, on this I would like to mention that a lot of estimates are coming. And as far we are concerned, our estimate is 48,000 crores. On the basis of consumption pattern in 2023-24, for which the complete data is available. But it is very difficult to estimate exact revenue implication because of the complexity which is involved when the rates are cut across the board. So it is difficult to say, but I would like to mention, whenever rate cut happens, it leads to more consumption. And if there is more consumption, because this, whether it is 48,000 or maybe some other figure, it remains in the hands of people. And when it is in the hands of people, they will spend it. That will lead to more consumption and further stimulus to GST collections. But one important thing is there. The benefit of these rate cuts should be passed on to the last ultimate consumer. Then only the money will come in his hand. That will lead to consumption growth. So it is very important that the benefits are passed on by the industry to the common man.
But how will you ensure that? Because a lot of skepticism around that, whether the end consumer will get the rate cut benefit or not. Also, will there any plan of reviving the anti-profiteering to deal with these issues?
So starting with the anti-profiteering provisions in GST law, the provisions are there, and when the GST was introduced in 2017, rate cuts have happened in 2017, 18, 19. And we have found that not many complaints have been filed under anti-profiteering provisions of GST law. So, and the amount involved was also not very big. So that gives us confidence that this time also the benefits will be passed on to the ultimate consumer. But what measures the government is taking to ensure that it is getting passed on to the ultimate consumer, I would like to mention that we are doing the price monitoring. So pre-cut and post-cut. So we have already instructed our field formations to take the data, and so that we can analyze whether these cuts are being passed on to the ultimate consumer or not. In fact, you might have also seen that in the print media, full page advertisement have happened from the industry segments where the cuts have happened, and they have pledged to pass on these cuts benefit to the ultimate consumers. So that again gives us more confidence that these cuts will be passed on to the ultimate consumer, and that will lead to increase in domestic consumption and will lead to better revenue growth.
Sir, I'm supposing that by this you are saying that you are fairly confident that there will not be any mishaps around anti-profiteering, etc. because of this, so that's taken on board. The feedback that we got from some of the companies that we were talking to outside was that there is still some debate around the inventory and the treatment of inventory in this transition period. Maybe they want some more time, maybe some industry bodies might be saying we do not need time. Maybe when the GST was announced, it should have come into effect not from September 22nd, but from September 5th. Any thoughts on that?
Yes, I would like to say that it was the industry's demand, because when the Honorable Prime Minister made that announcement on 15th of August, and there was quite an expectation from everyone that there will be GST rate cuts. And after that, we started receiving representation from trade that this exercise may be completed quickly, because that was leading to people postponing their purchases. So it was the industry demand, and that therefore the GST Council meeting was preponed, and a decision was taken by GST Council, made their recommendations so that this effect can take place in the minimum possible time. So it will now be from 22nd September. Now, regarding the issue which you have mentioned about the stocks which are in the supply chain. Yes. So in such cases, actually this is not the first time the rate cut has happened. In past also rate cuts have happened. And in the supply chain, at whatever rate GST has been paid, that entity in supply chain is entitled to take full ITC. And when they further supply it, then in that case, naturally there is some value addition by them. Those are the margins and certain value addition if it happens. Then in the monthly returns, they have to make the payment, GST payment. So they make the payment either by utilizing the ITC, or the balance portion is paid by them in cash in their monthly returns. Now what will happen that if ITC availability is more, they may make the payment from ITC. So the cash payment liability will get reduced to that extent during the transition period. But I don't see any kind of problem, because people keep on talking about that their credit notes will have to be issued, but I don't think that will be a case, because this benefit will get passed on.
Mm-hmm. And just a follow-up question on that, as we all know that rate cut is across the auto sector, in the small category, in the luxury segment. But one issue is concerning it, especially for the auto dealers, is about accumulation of compensation cess, because that will go lapse after September 22nd. So is there a mechanism in work? Are you considering that issue? How they are going to recover that, unsold credit on the compensation cess? Any mechanism there?
Yeah, you have raised a very pertinent issue. That concern is being flagged, and we keep on receiving representation regarding that. Let me say that cess is imposed for a particular purpose. Cess can be for the purpose of, say, health, cess can be for the purpose of agriculture, cess can be for the purpose of education. Compensation cess, again, is a cess, and it was imposed for a particular purpose, that was compensating the state in the first 5 years to ensure there is a certain percentage growth in their revenues on year-to-year basis. And that 5-year period was over in June 2022. After that, the compensation cess which is being collected is for the purpose of repayment of loan and interest thereon, which was taken during the period of COVID, because there was dip in revenue collections during that period. So I think in 2020-21, a loan of 1.1 crore was 1.1 lakh crore was taken, and in subsequent year 2021-22, a loan of 1.59 lakh crore was taken. For repayment of that loan, this compensation cess was taken and being collected. So whenever cess is discontinued, in past also, cesses have been discontinued. So what happened in those cases? Actually, in those cases also, what was lying in the books could not be utilized because the levy itself has gone. Same thing has happened in case of automobiles also, or maybe wherever cess has been discontinued. It is not only automobiles, it is in case of aerated water, it is in the case of coal also.
Right.
So once the levy has gone, whatever credit is lying, it will remain lying in their books.
So most of the people, right, last question or last couple of questions, most of the people that we've spoken to in the last 4 days have, like I said, I started off the conversation saying, "Ye dil mange more," everybody's saying, what's next? Now, I read about your comments that India will move to a single structure when income parity comes across. Now, that is maybe light years away. So between then and now, what else can be expected?
Yeah.
Not on the process, please, on the rates.
Presently, in this restructuring exercise, now it is 2-rate structure, 18 and 5. 5 has been kept a merit rate because our socio-economic conditions are such that for common man use items, we have to keep a lower rate. Once there is no need to keep a lower rate and only a standard rate is required, at that time, definitely another reform can be carried out by doing away with merit rate and having a standard rate. But I think that can happen, as I mentioned earlier also, that is there in some developed countries, not in all developed countries. So once we are in that position, that we can say for sure that everyone can afford goods equally, then we can have a single rate. In fact, single rate will lead to another benefit. Then there will be no inverted duty structure, because till the time we have to keep some goods at merit rate, we will have inverted duty structure in those sectors. So that is inevitable.
Speaking on the inverted duty structure, do you think these measures which we have taken under GST 2.0 is going to resolve fully with the sectors like textile, fertilizers?
As I mentioned that till the time we have to keep certain goods, maybe textiles, maybe certain other goods at merit rate of 5%, their inputs all cannot be brought because inputs can be used across different industry segments. So the inputs have to be kept at 18%. And if you want to keep everything at one rate, as I mentioned, that inverted duty structure will go for all commodities once we have single rate. But that can be only in future, depending upon the socio-economic conditions in the country.
Last question, sir. I had to ask this about the additional levy, lot of chatter around it, over and above the 40% special rate on tobacco. Is there any talks on that? Is there any measure under consideration?
The central government stand is that on the sin goods, tobacco products, the tax incidence will not be lowered. So the room which was available under GST law was that 40% can be the maximum rate. So up to 40% GST Council has recommended on tobacco products, sin goods. Beyond that, yes, there will be a levy under the constitutional provisions, so the tax incidence does not come down.
Sir, I must say, on behalf of a lot of people who look at markets and economy very closely, they're lauding this as one of the most landmark reforms that have happened. So kudos on doing this the way you have, and thank you so much for coming to the GST Conclave and talking to us.
Thank you, Neeraj. Thank you, Shriman.
We see the problems, but you as a social entrepreneur see the solutions. You are not just creating solution, you are creating a future where everyone has a chance to thrive. For the change makers, the innovators, the ones building a better world, one solution at a time. The Adani Green Talk Social Impact Awards are created for you, inviting social entrepreneurs to apply. Green Talk Social Impact Awards 2025, where innovation meets impact.
Presenting the all-knowing, all-powerful Tech Guru.
Whoa. Guru? I'm no guru.
Okay.
I'm just a guy who loves his tech.
A show where the mysteries of megabytes and motherboards shall be unraveled.
Bro, nobody talks like that anymore. This is all about connected ecosystems, EVs and AI.
Co-powered by National Stock Exchange. Innovation partner, Weka, India's largest selling UPVC window. Technology partner, Tally Prime, India's favorite business software. Brought to you by Apar Suraksha, जिस पे देश करे भरोसा.
Conversation is my colleague Vasudha Venugopal. Welcome on stage.
Good evening and welcome to this special conversation. India has taken a massive leap with GST 2.0, but what do these reforms really mean for the economy, for businesses, and most importantly, for the common man? At a time when India has just undertaken the biggest rehaul of the GST, we have with us a special guest, Sanjeev Sanyal, a member of the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council, a person who wears multiple hats, but I'm going to stick to economy today, and also a historian, somebody who's read widely, somebody whose work has brought fresh perspectives to India's past and also present. Mr. Sanyal, thank you so much for
Pleasure to be here, Vasudha.
Yeah. Mr. Sanyal, I saw your interviews and you have used this word process reform for GST 2.0, and you say that this is not to kickstart or boost consumption, but it is to put in place an efficient system. How are you so sure that it's going to bring tangible benefits to the common person in the country?
So what you have to understand is the distinction between a structural reform and what a process reform is. You see, everybody loves grand structural reforms, introduce the GST. That was a structural reform. Or the original reforms of 1991, we changed from a socialist system to a market-based system, or introduce the insolvency and bankruptcy code, or shift our monetary policy to an inflation targeting system. Now, those are all structural reforms because you have changed the structure of whatever that activity was. So when you introduce GST, you fundamentally change the structure of indirect taxes in India. Here, that's not what we are doing. We are taking the system, but we are doing a process reform in terms of making the existing system more efficient. So what have we done? We have basically, first of all, taken all the slabs, first of all, reduced them to 2. But very importantly, gone back to first principles and taken all the items and slotted them in what is a more logical place for them to be. For example, we used to have cement at 28. Now everybody argued, why is it there? Well, the reason it was there is not because of some great thinking that was done, but simply that it equated to whatever existed in the pre-GST period. Yeah. You slotted it in just because it was the least disruptive way of moving to a new system. But because you had this not necessarily sort of worked out way of
putting things in various slabs. First of all, you had lots of slabs, and then you would end up with these rather arcane debates about, what to tax salty popcorn vis-a-vis sweet popcorn and things like that. Now, these debates will happen because the system is not set up logically to equate to anything but what existed pre-GST. Right. So what we have done now is taken the system and rationalized it. Now, even if you didn't know, you didn't have the booklet which tells you what is in which slab, by just from common sense, you would broadly be able to tell what item is in which bucket, right? Now, that is a major efficiency gain. To a large extent, it gets rid of the inverted structure problem as well, not entirely, but to a large extent. And very importantly, we have done a whole bunch of process changes as well. So, for example, in a creeping sort of way, a sort of Inspector Raj had come back into the registration process. We understood that, so a new process system has been created by which at least 97% of the registration should happen within 3 days. So all of this is taking the same framework and cleaning it up. Right. And while doing this does mean that you may get a one-time boost in sales because the rates have by and large come down, it does, the real benefit to it is not about this one-time boost. The real benefit is from the fact that you made the whole system less having less friction and made it more productive. Because the game really is to get the whole system to work faster, become more buoyant, become more efficient, let the economy grow faster, and consequently, therefore, to be able to fill up some fiscal hit we may take in upfront.
Right. So then, Mr. Sanyal, how do you look at this criticism, especially by the opposition, that this has come too late and it's too little? Would you agree with the fact that we've also lost some time, some precious time, in bringing about these changes in the original design?
Well, I mean, one can always argue we should do it earlier. I mean, those who are making this case should have then done it in their own time. Fact is that it was done in 2017, now 8 good years ago. It took about 2 years to stabilize the system. And by the way, India is one of the few countries where it stabilized that fast and didn't end up causing a regime change, by the way. Then, having stabilized it by 2019, we then went through 2.5 years of fair amount of economic trauma because of the COVID shock. Then at the end of that, we were recovering from it. So again, don't disturb it, please. So it's only in 2024 that we began to feel confident that, look, let's go for it. And you will remember the late Bibek Debroy also on publicly making the case that, look, we need to have fewer slabs. And I have also publicly stated before that we need fewer slabs. So it's not some new thing that we didn't know we had to do. The question is when to do it. So about a year ago, we began to look into this seriously. And here we are. We have reduced them to 2 levels. We can always argue we should do it earlier or whatever. But here we are, and we have done it. And those in the opposition who think it should have been done earlier and that this has been done because of their advice, I hope they remain in the opposition and keep giving us good advice.
Mr. Sanyal, revenue losses seem to be a point that a lot of these opposition states are making. We just had the Punjab finance minister making the same point. How would you, what would you suggest to the centre to ensure that states don't get shortchanged?
Look, when you reduce rates and rationalize them, there would have been a one-time reduction in taxes. This is one of the reasons, incidentally, why we didn't do it as quickly as possible, because we were unclear whether coming out of COVID, fiscal systems were strong enough to do it. So you can't claim that it should have been done earlier and then say, oh my God, you are going to cause us a fiscal loss. There will be a fiscal loss if you rationalize downwards, which presumably is the plan. Nobody was arguing for rationalizing upward, I'm assuming. So if you're rationalizing downward, you will see an upfront cost. The idea, of course, is that the economy becomes more efficient, grows faster, and that you then make up for the one-time loss with the momentum of the economy and the buoyancy. So that's basically what we are arguing for, and I don't think anybody is arguing that this is consequently a bad thing.
Mr. Sanyal, you've been highlighting the compliance aspect of GST 2.0. Compliance would mean faster registration and also these partial refunds. Who would this benefit? Would it benefit the exporters and also MSME? And what kind of tangible benefits?
So generally speaking, it benefits everybody. Making the system making it friction-free benefits everyone. But typically, this sort of thing hurts the MSMEs most. Because typically you're dealing with somebody with one company which is just about getting registered, he can't even get going, whereas an existing large company already has a phalanx of chartered accountants who do this sort of thing, and even if things are delayed somewhere, they probably have a subsidiary somewhere else where that can get things going. So really the benefit happens to be the greatest to MSMEs, but everybody benefits.
So talking about MSMEs, I come from Tamil Nadu, and there's a lot of uncertainty amongst manufacturers, especially garment manufacturers. Similar concerns have been raised by shrimp farmers and the diamond merchants of Gujarat, and this is all to do with the US tariffs. How do you expect India to navigate the situation? I know that the rhetoric has toned down in the last few days. We also saw the Prime Minister respond to Donald Trump's tweet, but do you expect the situation to get better in the coming days?
So look, as we emerge as a global power, you have to get used to the fact that other countries, existing powers, including those who purport to be our friends, will be uncomfortable about it. So first thing we need to do, if we genuinely believe in being a world power, we first of all need to develop a bit of a thicker skin. And as you have seen in this particular episode, we have not escalated the matter, but we have stood our ground. And I think at some point in our history, we will have to do this. Now, if we cannot do it at a position when our economy is growing at least in the first quarter, by 7.8%, there's no particular emergency, our banks are in good shape, inflation is in decent shape, oil prices are in decently low. If in this moment in history we are unable to stomach a punch or two, then we'll never be able to do it. So if there is any moment in history we could have sort of stood our ground, this has got to be it, so we have done so. And I think we have done the right thing. Now, that does not mean that some parts of our system will not take some heat. And let me say, wherever possible, we will provide them support. We do have the fiscal and monetary space for doing it. This GST change also helps some of them. For example, the textiles guys some of their inversion has been removed. So let's see, as things pan out, we will provide whatever support is to be needed.
Right. Mr. Sanyal, talking about China, it looks like we could be normalizing ties with China soon. What kind of impact would that have on Indian economy, considering that our trade deficit with China remains quite significant?
So the trade deficit with China has been an issue for a while. And of course, we have things like Press Note 3 and so on, various restrictions we had put in place after Galwan. So we will have to see how this pans out. Fact is that while as a country we may not want to join things like RCEP, it also is true that we cannot wish China away. They are the world's largest industrial power. Even if we want to become an industrial power, a lot of the inputs will come from there for the time being, and maybe even into the longer future, there'll be segments where there will be an important supplier. I mean, we can be a great generics manufacturer of medicines, but the inputs come from China. So, and this idea that we can protect everything and manufacture every single thing at home may not quite work out. Even if we may want to, at least the key chokeholds we may want to protect, you cannot wish away China from the equation. So a normalization with China over time is in our interest as well.
Also, sir, well, in that case, given that there have been global headwinds and there have been these shocks that we've been getting, and many countries are witness to this, what kind of policy framework does India need so that our economy becomes quite resilient to adjust and adapt to these kind of shocks?
Well, you could spend the whole evening discussing various things, but I think you can put them in the general bucket of ease of doing business and ease of living. Basically, what has happened is that while we can still do some very large structural changes which we can discuss, and particularly you need to probably do major structural changes in the judiciary and speed that system up. But on the government policy front, the bulk of the big structural changes are probably done. There are some more that we can discuss, and I have some ideas on that. But a lot of what we need to do is really getting rid of friction. And so therefore, I keep talking about process reforms all the time, to the irritation of other people maybe. But I do want to make sure that the point is, we may need to do maybe half a dozen large structural reforms, but the real game is doing the thousands of process reforms. And when I say process reforms, what am I talking about? I'm talking about, some act, rule number 43C, subsection D, 3 words have to be changed. Now, the economy at large may not care about those 3 words, but there's some sector that does care about those 3 words. Right. And somebody has to do this excruciating business of going there and pulling those out. I have signed up for doing this, as you may be aware, so I have been working on this, but the good news is now it is getting more institutionalized. Just a couple of weeks ago, the government announced that a committee has been put in place for deregulation with former cabinet secretary, now member of Niti Aayog, Rajiv Gaubaji, in charge of that. So, a systematic effort towards doing these myriad process reforms is being made.
Right.
And there are other things that need to be done as well.
Talking about committees, there was a task force that the Prime Minister announced on Independence Day. This is to expedite bureaucratic reforms, to streamline bureaucracy. You've had some radical views on that, and a lot of us agree with you on the fact that the bureaucracy needs a lot of changes. What kind of governance changes do you think the country needs at this point of time?
So this is a huge topic. We could spend the whole evening talking about it, but at a very broad level, there are a few things we need to do. First of all, I think we need to think through the structure of the government in the following way. I have been doing some work on this, and my preliminary findings is that perhaps the Union Government of India is not as bloated as people think. My own sense is that it may in fact be too small. The problem is that the distribution of that bureaucracy is wrong. There are some very major areas of the government where we have too few people. For example, we have not enough people in, say, things like cybersecurity, or food safety, or even archaeology and museum protection. Municipal services, of course, that's not a central government activity, but still, if you're taking a more local government, not enough people in municipal government. So, in fact, the Indian government may not be too bloated, but it's all in the wrong place. Right. Meanwhile, we may have way too many people in certain other areas. I mean, I discovered that we have some 3,600 gazetted officers in the Geological Survey of India. Now, I have nothing against geological surveys or geology, which I think is a very useful thing. But one could argue that having 3,600 gazetted officers, and plus there are many non-gazetted officers as well, may be a bit too much for an institution that should be relatively slim and trim.
Right. One of my last questions to you, Mr. Sanyal. You've spoken about the demographic potential of the country, and you sound concerned, and this is something that's been echoed by a lot of chief ministers, experts. What should India do to get this right? Because we've seen the examples of several countries who are facing the challenge of aging population.
So we haven't aged yet, but we need to begin to think about this, because while we are in the demographic dividend phase for the next 25 years, do remember what this actually means. The reason we have just entered this demographic dividend phase is because 25 years ago, we had the peak in the number of children born. Since then, the number of babies born in this country has actually declined. I think if I'm not wrong, we had 29 million kids born in India in 2001. That was the peak. Today, that number has fallen to about 22 million. So, dramatic decline. We have a total fertility rate of about 1.9 and still declining, which is below the replacement rate. It is only at 1.9 because a couple of states like UP and Bihar happen to still have reasonable high birth rates, but even those are declining. But there are parts of the country where birth rates look like East Asia. And those states have begun to complain about the fact that they are seeing demographic changes because of migration from the north. But let me say, it may not last very long because those declines in fertility are also happening in the north. So rather than complain about this inflow of workers from the north, I think the south and the west as well, but in fact, interestingly, West Bengal too, which happens to have almost Korean birth rates in urban Bengal, you need to begin to think about how to at least ramp up birth rates. Now, let me warn you about one problem here, that no country in the world which has seen a decline in birth rates has been able to bring it back ever up past replacement rate. So if we manage to do it, we'll be unique. But at the very least, we need to shut down all these population control programs which still seem to hang around in our bureaucracy. In fact, since you mentioned in our earlier question, what are the things to shut down in the government? Well, every kind of population control program in this country needs to be shut down now.
Are they still working across the country?
Yeah, they are all embedded in various ways in the system. You see, it's like this. Once you create a bureaucracy, it stays alive. We are now 30 years into being a market-based economy, but half the things I'm fighting are all structures that were and laws and rules created in the socialist period, some even in the colonial period. So once you create a bureaucracy, it stays alive. This is not true of just India. The one-child policy was removed in China relatively recently. This is 30 years past when it was obvious they had to do it, and almost half a century past their peak in the number of children. So even in China, once the bureaucracy, you had given somebody targets to reduce birth rates, they kept doing it till well past where it made any sense. And every economist and demographer worth their salt was screaming that, look, this makes no sense. Why are you continuing with a one-child policy?
Right.
But it still went on for 2 extra decades. So you have to go into our systems, and we go into our medical systems, for example. We have actually still all kinds of incentives for doing hysterectomy, tubectomy, and all kinds of birth control things. I am okay with women making fair choices about it. But if we have a government program that actually promotes it and particularly gives incentives to doctors for carrying out these things and encouraging it, then, then at the very least, you should get rid of them.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Sanyal. On that note, thank you so much. That's something to think about. Sanjeev Sanyal, on the importance of making policy that touches people's life and benefits them. Thank you so much, Mr. Sanyal.
Thank you.
We see the problems, but you as a social entrepreneur see the solutions. You are not just creating solution, you are creating a future where everyone has a chance to thrive. For the change makers, the innovators, the ones building a better world, one solution at a time. The Adani Green Talk Social Impact Awards are created for you, inviting social entrepreneurs to apply. Green Talk Social Impact Awards 2025, where innovation meets impact.
Presenting the all-knowing, all-powerful Tech Guru.
Whoa. Guru? I'm no guru.
Okay.
I'm just a guy who loves his tech.
A show where the mysteries of megabytes and motherboards shall be unraveled.
Bro, nobody talks like that anymore. This is all about connected ecosystems, EVs and AI that you can use in your daily lives. We aren't talking about time travel yet.
Gadgets tested under extreme conditions.
But why? I review tech for people like you and me. You know what? Let me take it from here.
All right.
Co-powered by National Stock Exchange. Innovation partner, Weka, India's largest selling UPVC window. Technology partner, Tally Prime, India's favorite business software. Brought to you by Apar Suraksha, जिस पे देश करे भरोसा.
company. Whenever there is a tax cut or a GST reform, it's not just a cut in taxes, it's actually a growth and consumption accelerator. India is the only large economy in the world where 63% of our entire GDP is domestic consumption, so it's huge. More money in the pocket, reduction in complexity, it's fabulous. It's easier to file taxes, it's easier to pay for them. However, I think our industry, for some reason, does not get to experience the benefit of input tax credit. Now, we are the second largest employer of human capital in India after agriculture. 10 million people directly employed, another 10 million through ancillary means. We also contribute between 2 and 3% to the country's GDP. And we are now compounded annually growing at a rate about 11%. When the GST regime came about in, I think, June of 2017, the compounded annual growth rate was 22%. So it's come down to half for the organized sector and about 8% for the disorganized sector. That being said, I think we're very happy about some of the changes that have been incorporated now. So it's not all gloom and doom, it's very good. I think any reduction in complexity, any reduction in tax rates will put more money in the hands of the consumers, and that'll funnel its way down to us. The good thing is, and this is good trivia for you all, Indians love eating out more than any form of entertainment. The Indian F&B sector is 40 times larger than Bollywood, and Indians spend almost 40% of their gross disposable income on eating out. So we will probably be a direct beneficiary of added money in the hands of consumer. We'll also be a direct beneficiary in some of the input costs that we're going to face, no doubt about it. Ghee, bread, milk, meat, cheese, dairy products, parathas, as somebody mentioned before me, or ACs, utensils. So there'll be a fit-out cost benefit that we'll face, and they will obviously face a benefit in input costs, which happens to be our highest cost. But the problem is some of the key things that affect us are still not fully, the benefit is still not fully accruing to us because we don't get input tax credit. For example, and my dear friend Pushpa is sitting next to me, after food, the largest cost for the restaurant sector is occupancy cost. Occupancy cost is still charged at 18%, which means I'm technically paying a fifth higher in rent and I cannot get a credit. So in essence, when I measure per square foot rates, 500, 400, 300 rupees, it's actually not. 400 is actually 480 rupees.
So you're listening to that, huh?
Yes, no, she's my dear friend. So we have this banter on a lot of these forums, and we enjoy each other's company.
For the government.
Yes.
However, the lack of ITC for an industry like ours that is already plagued with razor-thin margins, and also, please understand, the morbidity rate of the food business, the restaurant sector, is the highest in the world. 9 out of 10 restaurants shut down within a month, and 9.6 out of 10 shut down within 18 months. So the margins are very thin. It's not a high profit sector. And it's also an industry. I really feel that we don't have the industry status yet, but we're big enough to be called an industry. And I think it's very important for us to kind of get the benefit of that. Like I said, any kind of enhancement in consumer spending will funnel its way to us, which will happen because people will now be paying less for some key instruments. However, the full benefit is still not fully accruing to us. And it's so we at the NRI, I represent the NRI, which is India's largest restaurant body. We have about 5 lakh members, and we have an incredibly robust set of driven people that are sending out these reps and warranties to the government, and we're very hopeful. I think now the time is right. There are other hotels and restaurants and hotels that get input tax credit. We don't get to enjoy that yet.
I'm going to come back to you. Let me give Pushpa a chance as well to come in here. Pushpa, I want to understand from you, Zorawar just spoke about, more money in the hands of consumers. From a retail perspective, do you expect shoppers to stay cautious and focus on essentials? Or is this a push towards aspirational lifestyles and purchases?
Good afternoon, everyone. Well, before I answer that question, you should grant me that I sit opposite Zorawar and negotiate with him on rents. That must be a tall order, right?
Yeah, that's what I was referring to back then, yes.
She's a tough negotiator, very tough.
Anyways, well, as far as the, the way I look at it is that I represent both CII as well as the shopping industry. And couple of things are very good and few
Dil Mange More. One is, of course, the fact that, yes, there's a general sentiment where people are understanding that there's going to be more cash in their wallet. Discretionary income and spends would increase, and that is a natural fallout of this. The timing is really good from a shopping industry point of view because it's festive season. That's when 60% of our consumption happens during this belt of October to December, January. This is when 60% of our sales happen. So the timing is absolutely bang on. One of the things that I'd like to point out is that while the simplification is highly welcome across sectors. I've been talking to all of my retail tenants. They all say that the simplification and making it just two-tier makes it super simple, and also the back-end calculations become that much more simple. However, the 2,500 for apparel currently is, and footwear, these are the two high consumption items in shopping industry, and that has been given an additional levy from 2,500. If you shop for 2,500 rupees, it is 12%. Anything above 2,500 rupees is 18%. Well, that, as Mr. Sanyal was sitting here, I wanted to walk up to him and say, why 2,500? What was that magic number about? Because I do think that any of us who go shopping, 2,500 for an apparel is going to make it value-centric, but not really aspirational. So one would want that 2,500 number to be relooked at, perhaps, and that would be a request from the shopping industry. However, the fact that there would be an overall sentiment boost, and also the fact that there will be I think, more money in people's wallets, and that will definitely boost overall consumption.
But are you seeing that already in terms of footfalls in malls? Are you waiting for 22nd September to see that huge footfall in malls?
Well, again, I think like the earlier panels were talking about it, there is a lot of, at this point in time, I wouldn't call it confusion, but a certain query on how will the inventory, current inventory, be tackled. They are waiting for that. But beyond that, and I'm sure there'll be clarity given by the government, the shopping period, which really starts from 22nd September, we do think that there will be some more value given, some more value-added discounts passed on, and hence we do expect much more in terms of our sales during the festive period overall.
You know, Zorawar, a lot of people go out when they have more money in their wallets, right? You've seen that in your restaurants as well. But once GST relief makes eating out cheaper, do you expect families to step into these restaurants more often, or will caution continue in terms of discretionary spending?
You know, it's incredible that you say that. Like I said, we are the #1 form of entertainment in the world, and whenever there is affordability in India, and this is an important statement, affordability in India is the gateway to aspiration. It's an absolutely integral element. We are going to add, by 2030, 75 million people into the middle class and 25 million people into the affluent class. So what are these people going to do? They're going to go and eat out. They're going to buy clothes, you know, above 2,500 and below. They're going to go buy luxury cars. I believe some SUVs have faced a reduction in price. They're going to go and buy more air conditioners. I found air conditioning has come down cheaper. I better change the air conditioners in my room. They've been giving me some trouble. Overall, I think whenever there is more money, people will go towards, will funnel their energy and money into things they really want and they desire. Now, that's in a way for us as an industry, we're no longer just a want or a desire, we're also a need. Yes. Somebody who does not have a kitchen at home, a single person living in Gurgaon, you know, he doesn't have a wife, he's alone, he doesn't have a cook, he's sitting alone. What's he going to do? He's going to order food in? At that point in time, it stops being a want or a desire. It becomes an absolute need.
But if I might just interject there, is it cheaper for me to reach out to your restaurant and call for food home directly now? Or through, platforms like Swiggy and Zomato? It's going to cost more then, isn't it? Isn't that something you should be happy about, given the morbid statistics you've been giving us till now?
You know, I wish the platforms would let us do our own pricing. They always ask for parity, or, you know, both the platforms don't sell food yourself cheaper. No, I think it's the prerogative of the restaurant. The restaurant should get to decide. If I want to give you an extra little voucher for a free cocktail or a free starter next time you come, I should be able to do that. So platforms don't necessarily allow that. But I'll tell you this, it is cheaper for you today to order food in than to make it yourself. The delivery side of India is not competing with restaurants. It's competing with your home kitchen.
All right. So I've been told that the finance minister is on her way and I have to wrap this up. But very quickly, before she gets here, what is your message to her from your sector and yours as well, Zorawar? Let's just keep it all ready for her to know before she enters the hall itself.
Well, the one message is thank you. I think this was something that we were all waiting for, a simplification and as well as boosting the economy. This would definitely boost in a larger sense. And where the shopping industry is concerned, we, as Zorawar said, we are looking at generating employment. We are the second or third largest employment generators, and we want an industry status sooner than later. So that's something that we would like to talk.
Great insight there. Your wish list, Zorawar,
So
in a
firstly,
minute.
thanks. I think every time there's a GST slab cut, their complexity is reduced, people have more money, that'll funnel towards us. So that's great. Our humble submission to the powers that be, please restore ITs for us. We're one of the very few industries that don't get it. It means the difference between survival or death. I cannot harp on some of my friends are over here, and the restoration of ITC could be the difference between your favorite next door restaurant that you've dined at for a decade, whether it's there for another decade or not.
All right, thank you so much to our panelists. Well, thank you, Pushpa and Zorawar, for those insights. What we've heard today is that GST reforms and rate cuts can bring festive cheer, but obviously we also need to see whether that benefit is passed on to you, the consumer. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We see the problems, but you as a social entrepreneur see the solutions. You are not just creating solution, you are creating a future where everyone has a chance to thrive. For the change makers, the innovators, the ones building a better world, one solution at a time. The Adani Green Talk Social Impact Awards are created for you, inviting social entrepreneurs to apply. Green Talk Social Impact Awards 2025, where innovation meets impact.
Presenting the all-knowing, all-powerful Tech Guru.
Whoa. Guru? I'm no guru.
Okay.
I'm just a guy who loves his tech.
A show where the mysteries of megabytes and motherboards shall be unraveled.
Bro, nobody talks like that anymore. This is all about connected ecosystems, EVs and AI that you can use in your daily lives. We aren't talking about time travel yet.
Gadgets tested under extreme conditions.
Co-powered by National Stock Exchange. Innovation partner, Weka, India's largest selling UPVC window. Technology partner, Tally Prime, India's favorite business software. Brought to you by Apar Suraksha, जिस पे देश करे भरोसा.
Well, good evening, everybody, and thank you very much for being with us. I've had the opportunity, the privilege really of interviewing all of the gentlemen on this stage in the past as well, more than on one occasion for most of them. And I think they represent some of the best in industry. Chandrajit Banerjee is somebody I've interacted more than the others. The Confederation of Indian Industry has been wonderful with us at NDTV, and it's great to have this panel, which represents not just CII, but some of the finest voices in India on this topic. GST 2.0 is a revolution. How does it impact different sectors? That's what we really want to look at today. Dr. Trent, I must come to you first. As you sip that glass of water, there's that sin tax, right? For you as a doctor, that must be incredibly important. The fact that we have a sin tax, tobacco products are taxed very heavily, it saves lives.
So there are actually 3 categories in which you can classify or break it down. First is the fact that removing GST on insurance premium, which was 18%, made the insurance premiums almost